Chapter 1096. Ghost Hall. Xinggan and Han Dong's expressions abruptly changed when they heard Xiao Yan's words. Astonishment involuntarily surfaced in their eyes. They never imagined that Yi Luotian would actually be related to Ghost Hall. Soon after, the two of them once again exchanged glances. When they saw the astonishment in each other's eyes, the shock in their hearts became even more intense. "Little fellow, are you certain that the faction supporting Yi Luotian is really Ghost Hall?" Upon hearing this, Xiao Yan nodded his head with certainty. At the same time, he gave a rough description of the members of Ghost Hall. This time, Xinggan and Han Dong no longer had any doubts in their hearts. Even so, Xinggan still did not agree to Xiao Yan's suggestion of an alliance. "Xiao Yan, your news has indeed shocked us. However, the rules of the alliance cannot be broken. You should return first." Xinggan frowned and pondered for a moment. Only then did he speak somewhat hesitantly. At the same time, Han Dong also swept his gaze over the two of them. His gaze quickly met Xinggan's before he nodded his head in an almost undetectable manner. Soon after, he spoke to Xiao Yan. "Xiao Yan, why don't you return first? Of course, we also know that this matter is not as simple as it appears on the surface. To be safe, we can promise you that the alliance will continue to observe. If there is no other choice, we will definitely ensure your safety." The repeated persuasion from the two of them caused Xiao Yan to feel somewhat helpless. After expressing his thanks, he left on his own. After Xiao Yan left the stone room, the expressions of Xinggan's duo within the stone room instantly became grave. "I really did not expect that they would actually participate in this matter. Moreover, from the looks of it, they seem to want to use the Qin wasteland Maze Valley as a cover to secretly control the western region. Ghost Hall, it has been many years since there was any major news about them. To think that they actually want to swallow the western region the moment they appear. Their appetite is really big." At this moment, the two of them repeatedly thought about the battle between Xiao Yan and the Qin Desolate Maze. In particular, when they thought about the Ghost Hall, they felt an inexplicable sense of unease. Even they had little understanding of this strange faction. Although they were also from the Middle Region, the only thing they knew about the Ghost Hall was that it was from a faction called the Ghost Slaughter Gate in the Middle Region. Moreover, Guild Leader, should we report this to the higher-ups? Han Dong suddenly said. Xing Qian pondered for a moment before shaking his head. "It's better not to. The Ghost Palace in the Western region is acting strangely, but we don't know what the other regions are doing. Let's inform them first. It won't be too late to report to the higher-ups after we've investigated the reason behind this." After which, Han Dong nodded his head. The two people in the stone room once again descended into deep thought. At the same time, Xiao Yan was hurrying towards the Shilin region with a suspicious face. From the expressions on the faces of Xinggan and Han Dong earlier, they were also quite afraid of the Ghost Hall. Moreover, they seemed to be extremely shocked by the appearance of the people from the Ghost Hall. From this point, it was not difficult to guess that the Alchemist Alliance should have been secretly observing the actions of the Ghost Hall for a long time. There was also Luo Jin's group. The existence of these factions made Xiao Yan secretly associate them in his mind. Their existence did not seem to be an extension of the faction. Instead, it felt like they were restraining each other. Very quickly, Xiao Yan returned to the Shilin mountain range. Seeing the former successfully return, the little fairy doctor and the rest in the mountain range could not help but secretly sigh in relief. Among these people, the one who was most worried about Xiao Yan was Leng Shuang, whose beautiful face seemed to be ice cold. For some unknown reason, her heart was actually much more relaxed and joyful than the people around her when she saw Xiao Yan return. The stuffiness that had been suppressed in her chest had also loosened. When she recalled the first 2 days when Xiao Yan was not around, the black-robed figure with a smile on his face had also repeatedly surfaced in her mind. At the same time, the so-called hatred in the bottom of her heart had actually disappeared without her realizing it. After Xiao Yan returned to the Shilin mountain range, he began to swiftly reorganize his forces. On the 9th day, he led the group of experts behind him and headed toward Shahi shop. At the same time, the experts from all over the western region were using their personal actions to observe the big battle this time around. Before Xiao Yan and the rest could arrive, Sand River shop was already packed with people. Various tyrants and sects from various corners of the western region had gathered here. These people had all come for the battle between Xiao Yan and the Qin Wasteland Maze Valley. On the other side, the group from the Qin Wasteland Maze Valley led by Qin Shua was already advancing towards Sand River shop. Among the entire group, only Yi Luotian was not present. This was because the latter was currently in the western valley of Flat Mountain. The western valley of Flat Mountain. Yi Luotian's expression was extremely ugly as he stared at the empty space in front of him. After which, he glanced at the undamaged seal behind him. His old face trembled with anger. Yi Luotian immediately understood that an origin transformation expert was responsible for the deaths of the 6 9-star Dodi in the outside world when he had just arrived. However, he was relieved to find that the restriction he had left in the depths of the Western Call was still intact. This meant that the origin transformation expert must have seen through the restriction after killing the 6 Dodi's group and realized that there was something wrong with it. That person should have retreated in the face of difficulties. But what he didn't expect was that when he entered the space behind the restriction, he was stunned to find that although the restriction he set up was still there, and there were no signs of it being tampered with, the people inside, the more than 30 people who were crucial in this battle, were all missing at this moment. Not only had their auras not been left behind, even Yi Luotian was unable to sense their connection with him. What's going on? What's going on? Who did it? Who did it? In the depths of the western valley of Flat Mountain, Yi Luotian suddenly raised his head. A deafening roar was emitted from his throat as a powerful force swept out from his body. A terrifying destructive force had actually raised the western valley of Flat Mountain to the ground in an instant. Unfortunately, regardless of how furious he was at this moment, the 30-plus elite Dou Di and Lu Zhongtian among them were destined not to return. Time flowed by and it was already the 10th day of the agreed-upon meeting. When the sun rose from the east and reached the treetops, Xiao Yan's group arrived at Sand River shop. After so many years, he had arrived at this place again. However, it had already changed greatly. The first time he had come to Sand River shop was to escort Murong Qianxian. Unfortunately, he had stopped halfway. The second time, he had met Han Dong and the sect leaders of the 4 great sections. Back then, he had still been weak and needed the protection of others. However, in the blink of an eye, he had come to Sand River shop for the 3rd time. This time, Xiao Yan was already standing at the peak of the experts in the western region. At the same time, he held the fate of the western region in his hands. Chapter 1097. When Xiao Yan's group arrived at Shahipu, the people in the city immediately revealed shocked expressions when they saw this group of people. It was unexpected that there was actually such a large group hidden within the Shilin mountain range. With their eyesight, they were naturally able to tell that the weakest person in Xiao Yan's group was a 3-star Dou Di. There was naturally no need to mention the strongest person. Of course, it was that black-robed, young man who was leading the group. The late stage of the origin transformation realm. Even in the entire western region, the only person who could contend against such a cultivation was probably Qin Shua from the Qin Wasteland Maze Valley. While the people in the city were shocked by Xiao Yan's cultivation, his young appearance also caused them to feel shocked. It was the first time they had seen such a young origin transformation expert after living for so many years. However, when these people saw Ling Bing Xuan, Kai Er, and the others standing beside Xiao Yan, the faces of a countless number of people were instantly petrified. Their eyes were filled with shock and despair. There was naturally no lack of old monsters in the crowd. Although there were no origin transformation experts among them, they were still able to recognize the young people beside Xiao Yan with a single glance as well as the burly bearded man with a curly beard. The 5 of them were all origin transformation experts, especially Xiao Yan and the woman in an icy blue dress to his left. Their auras were so deep that no one dared to look directly at them. This Xiao Yan really is a heaven-defying figure. It's really hard to imagine. Not only is he young and promising, but even his friends are also heaven-defying little monsters. A total of 5 origin transformation experts. Looks like the Qin Wasteland Maze Valley is going to be very unlucky this time. According to what I know, he only has 4 origin transformation experts in the entire Qin Wasteland Maze Valley. When the crowd saw the 5 origin transformation experts in Xiao Yan's group, quite a few of them immediately revealed expressions of schadenfreude. Quite a few of them even began to look forward to the start of the great battle. Most of these people had come to watch the battle with the attitude of watching a show. They only cared about who the final winner would be. They did not care about whether or not they would take action or which side they should help. This was the so-called opportunist. They did not have the ability or courage to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. There were many powerful organizations hidden in the western region. Although they did not have anything else, they at least knew their limits. Unless they did not want to live anymore. At noon, Xiao Yan's group was at ease as they waited for the arrival of the Qin Wasteland Maze Valley in a spacious area of the city. They drank tea and laughed along the way, causing the people in the city to feel shocked. Now that the great battle was imminent, these people were actually in the mood to drink tea and make merry. Were they really not afraid of death? At a certain moment, Xiao Yan, who was seated in front of everyone, raised his eyes to look at the western horizon. His eyes narrowed, and he immediately stood up. His gaze swept across the members of the Xiao Gate behind him. When they sensed Xiao Yan's gaze, they immediately withdrew the smiles on their faces. Their gazes all landed on Xiao Yan. Everyone, the great battle is imminent. I still say the same thing. I hope that when you fight with the Qin Wasteland Maze Valley, you will not have the attitude of casually sending us off. If not, towards the end, a coldness gradually flashed across Xiao Yan's eyes. A faint chilliness leaked out from his words, causing the hearts of everyone present to shiver slightly. This was especially the case when Xiao Yan's gaze swept across Fang Tonghui's group. The cold glint in his eyes caused their expressions to change slightly. Clearly, although Xiao Yan's words were said to everyone present, it was likely that half of the warning was for them. Chief, you can be rest assured. Since we are members of the Xiao Gate, it is our duty to go through fire and water for Chief. Today, no matter how many people come from the Qin Wasteland Maze Valley, we will just kill them all. Fang Tonghui was the first among the few of them to stand up. He looked at Xiao Yan. When he spoke, his gaze swept across all the members of the Xiao Gate present. When his words sounded, everyone present followed and cried out loudly. Such a scene was quite imposing. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yan's face revealed a warm smile as he slowly said, "Naturally, this is a very good thing." This naturally couldn't be any better. As long as we work together to eliminate the Qin Wasteland Maze Valley, the rewards that I promised everyone after the battle is over will naturally be delivered in full. When everyone heard the word rewards from Xiao Yan's mouth, a fiery expression immediately surfaced on their faces. Compared to the relationship between fellow disciples that Fang Tonghui had described earlier, from the way they saw it, only the rewards that Xiao Yan had mentioned were real things. Xiao Yan involuntarily laughed coldly in his heart in response to this. By the side, Murong Xian and the heaven-reaching giant ape could not help but be speechless in their hearts when they saw this scene. This was especially so for the heaven-reaching giant ape. After having personally witnessed Xiao Yan's tactics, he felt fear towards this seemingly young black-robed, young man from the bottom of his heart. After a round of intimidation, Xiao Yan immediately turned around once again. He raised his head and looked towards the western horizon. The corner of his mouth was lifted into an icy arc as he spoke faintly. "They're here." The moment these words were spoken, everyone behind him immediately stood up. They raised their heads and looked towards the western horizon. At the same time, a solemn expression appeared on their faces. The Dou Qi within their bodies began to circulate. Not long after, as expected, a vast and mighty group of people quickly flew over from the western horizon. Like a huge dark cloud, they enveloped the entire sky above Sand River Street. Ha ha ha, Xiao Yan and you, Leng Bing Shuang, today is the day you die. Just as the group arrived in the sky above Shahi Pai, Qin Shua, who was at the front, let out a loud roar. It caused the expressions of everyone in the city to change as they felt extreme fear in their hearts. Qin Shua was indeed worthy of being a terrifying existence at the peak of the advanced origin transformation stage. Just a roar from him was filled with a frightening strength. Haha, the situation has yet to be decided. Why speak so confidently? Are you not afraid of biting your tongue? Soon after, another clear laugh rang out. Xiao Yan's group also quickly flew into the sky and stood before the group from the Qin Wasteland Maze Valley. Qin Shua's expression could not help but change slightly when he saw Xiao Yan's group of a few dozen people. No wonder Xiao Yan had asked him to wait for 10 days and bring so many people with him before the battle. It turned out that there was such a large faction behind Xiao Yan. When Xiao Yan's gaze swept across the group from the Qin Wasteland Maze Valley, sure enough, there were 3 origin transformation experts including Qin Shua. However, Yi Luotian was missing. Xiao Yan's eyes immediately narrowed when he sensed this. Chapter 1098. What's going on? Yi Luotian doesn't seem to be with their group. Do they have some sort of plan? Leng Bingshuang immediately frowned when she saw that Yi Luotian was not with the group from the Qin Wasteland Maze Valley. She could not help but cry out in surprise. Perhaps. To them, it's an ingenious plan, but to me, it should be within my expectations. In comparison, Xiao Yan's face did not show much surprise. He should be able to roughly guess where Yi Luotian had gone. While Xiao Yan was observing the group from the Qin Wasteland Maze Valley, Qin Shua's gaze also swept across the people beside Xiao Yan. However, his heart could not help but sink when he sensed the auras of the 5 people. He had never expected that Xiao Yan's side would actually have 5 origin transformation experts. At this moment, Qin Shua could not help but think of Yi Luotian. That fellow had claimed that he had gone to gather reinforcements. Why was he nowhere to be seen now that the battle was about to begin? Could it be that he had already sensed the strength of Xiao Yan's side and fled by himself? Damn it, that bastard. I shouldn't have let him go so easily. When he thought of this, the pressure in Qin Shua's heart grew even heavier. If it was really as he thought, Yi Luotian had escaped by himself and left this mess to him in the Qin Wasteland Maze Valley. Wouldn't he be doomed? They were the ones who had issued the challenge. How could they just accept the challenge and not accept the challenge? Even if the Qin Wasteland Maze Valley was willing to admit defeat, a battle would still be unavoidable. At this moment, Qin Shua could only hope that Yi Luotian would not go back on his promise and not return. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to fight to the death with Xiao Yan's group with just the people behind him. Unknowingly, Xiao Yan's faction had already become much more terrifying than the Colossus of the Western region. Even though the number of Dou Di was not as many as the Qin Wasteland's Maze Valley, just a single origin transformation expert was enough to change the entire situation in an instant, let alone the fact that Xiao Yan's side had 2 more origin transformation experts. Ha ha ha, Sect Master, since they've lost an origin transformation expert, why don't we use this opportunity to take action and finish them off in one go? Behind Xiao Yan, Fang Tonghui and Lu Qing hurriedly stepped forward and spoke with sinister smiles on their faces. They wouldn't mind taking advantage of the situation. Of course, Xiao Yan wouldn't mind either. This was a battle between sections. To be honest, this kind of battle was inherently unfair. Why should they wait just because the other side had one less person? This kind of so-called waiting would only invisibly increase the pressure on their side. Alright, since this is the case, now, Xiao Yan lifted his right hand and waved it violently after his words sounded. Immediately, the group of people from Shao Gate behind him moved and charged toward the group from the Qin Wasteland's Maze Valley. At the same time, the expressions of the people from the Qin Wasteland's Maze Valley changed when they saw that Xiao Yan's group had actually taken the lead to attack. This was especially the case for Qin Shua, who involuntarily cursed. "Damn fellow, if you still don't appear, I will definitely tear you to pieces when I find you." Soon after, Qin Shua led the people from the Qin Wasteland's Maze Valley to attack Xiao Yan's group. However, at this moment, a loud laughter was suddenly heard from the sky above where the two parties were about to fight. "Ha ha ha, Valley Master, are you really worried that I will run away?" The expressions of the people from Shao Gate and the Qin Wasteland's Maze Valley all changed when the loud laughter rang out. Their charging figures came to a halt because of this. Everyone raised their heads and looked at the group of people who were slowly descending from the sky. At this moment, another group of people had descended from the sky in an extremely strange manner between the two groups of people. The leader of this group was Yi Luo Tian, who had disappeared without a trace. At this moment, there was another group of people behind Yi Luo Tian. There were not many people in this group. There were only 13 of them in total. However, the appearance of these 13 people caused Xiao Yan's expression to abruptly change drastically. The rock in his heart also instantly fell to the bottom of the valley. Other than the leader, Yi Luo Tian, this group of 14 also had 10 high-class Do Di and 2 origin transformation experts. As for the black-robed person closest to Yi Luo Tian, the strength of his cultivation caused Xiao Yan to feel a dense uneasiness in his heart. Returnant's realm, Xiao Yan had clearly sensed this special feeling from Xing Gan of the Alchemist Alliance. It was a special feeling that surpassed that of an origin transformation expert. There was no need to doubt that the person who had come was a returnant's expert. As for these 13 people, there was no doubt that they were all from the Ghost Palace. At the place where they landed, other than the swirling black mist, there was also a wide black robe that covered their bodies, as well as a strange mask that was exposed to the air. It really is the Ghost Hall. On a mountain peak far away from the Sand River, Xing Gan and Han Dong were standing there, staring at the three forces in the city from afar. When the two of them saw the dozen or so black-robed men appear, their expressions became gloomy. "President, the cultivation of the person at the front, it can't be wrong. He's also a returnance expert." Xing Gan was stern as he slowly replied. "Then should we take action?" Han Dong's face tightened slightly when he heard that. He placed great importance on Xiao Yan. If he could help, he hoped that he could help him through this crisis. "Let's watch first. Unless we have no other choice, let's not take action so easily." With that, Han Dong also nodded sternly. He fell silent and continued to stare at the situation in the city in the distance. At the same time, a group of black-robed people, whose appearances could not be clearly seen, were also standing on another mountain peak to the north. Many pairs of golden eyes under the black robes were observing the scene in the city at this moment. They were constantly vigilant. On the chest area of their black robes, all of them wore a badge with the word "Heaven" written on it without exception. Following the appearance of these 10+ people in the arena, the expressions of everyone on Xiao Yan's side changed drastically. 10 high-class Do Di and 3 origin transformation experts had appeared. There was even a mysterious expert whose cultivation they could not identify among them. Once this lineup was added to the Qin Wasteland Maze Valley, it was equivalent to 60 Do Di, 6 origin transformation experts, and an extremely dangerous person whose strength was unknown. As a result, the difference between the Shao Gate and the Qin Wasteland Maze Valley had undergone a great reversal in the blink of an eye. The situation that had originally been advantageous to the Shao Gate had become dangerous in an instant. Chapter 1099. Xiao Yan's expression was extremely solemn as he looked at the group of human figures standing in the empty space a short distance away from him. This was especially the case when his gaze swept over the black-robed person leading the group. His heart involuntarily trembled. The appearance of a returnance expert had turned the situation around in a single moment. The situation that had originally been advantageous to Xiao Yan's group was no longer present. Although the battle had yet to begin, the outcome of the battle seemed to be extremely obvious from the current situation. Whether it was in terms of origin transformation experts or Do Di, the people from the Maze Valley of the Qin Wastelands were superior to Xiao Yan's group. With such a disadvantage, it was basically impossible for Xiao Yan's group to emerge victorious. Even the people from the Xiao sect behind Xiao Yan could not help but feel their hearts sink when they sensed this. Some of them even began to consider retreating. No matter how precious the pills were, they were not as important as their lives. It was impossible for a group of just over 40 people to fight against a sect that had almost 70 people. Not to mention, the difference in the number of experts between the two sides was extremely obvious. If they continued to fight, it would be no different from throwing their lives away. No matter how much they desired the extreme transformation pill, they would not go so far as to throw their lives away. Xiao Yan, TSK 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 TSK, I've heard of your name like thunder. After staying in the western region for so long, I've finally seen your true appearance. Just as both parties were silent, the black-robed leader beside Yi Luo Tian suddenly shifted his gaze. A pair of scarlet eyes were revealed from the black fog. They stared intently at Xiao Yan on the opposite side like a poisonous snake. A strange laughter was emitted from his mouth. Heh, a group of things that are neither human nor ghost. I've already grown impatient from waiting for this day. I'll start with you first. Xiao Yan's eyes were extremely cold as he stared at the black-robed man. A dense killing intent appeared on his face. The moment his words sounded, his body shook and a pale blue flame soared with a bang, wrapping around Xiao Yan's body. The pair of scarlet eyes under the black robe involuntarily hardened when he saw this scene. With his eyesight, he was naturally able to recognize that the flame that had adhered to Xiao Yan's body was definitely a heavenly flame. However, the thing that surprised him was that the strength of the heavenly flame's aura did not originate from the Doqi continent. Instead, it came from the original heavenly flames on the Yuanwu continent, which had already transformed into spirits. Could it be the spirit of a heavenly flame? The expression of the black-robed man under his mask involuntarily changed when he sensed this. However, he could not help but frown when he once again checked the pale blue flame on Xiao Yan's body. If it was really the spirit of a heavenly flame, why was the color of the heavenly flame on Xiao Yan's body a pale blue color? According to his knowledge, there was no heavenly flame on the heavenly flame ranking that displayed such a color. Moreover, if Xiao Yan really possessed the spirit of a heavenly flame, why would he reveal such an expression when he saw them? That grave expression did not appear to be an act. Although he had guessed that Xiao Yan did not have the protection of a heavenly flame spirit, the black-robed man still felt some fear towards Xiao Yan. Even though Xiao Yan's cultivation was far inferior to his, the black-robed man had long heard of the former's terrifying battle prowess. Fighting against someone of a higher cultivation level was a common occurrence for him. Hence, even with his cultivation level, he could not help but feel somewhat worried when he fought against Xiao Yan this time. Humph, Yi Luo Tian, I never imagined that you would actually mix around with this group of fellows. At this moment, a low and cold snort suddenly sounded from Qin Shua's mouth in another part of the square. As one of the overlords of the western region, Qin Shua had naturally heard of Ghost Palace. When he first saw these black-robed men, he immediately recognized their identities. Ha ha, Valley Chief's words are wrong. How can we be called messing around? The reason why I have invited these few people here is because we have the same goal. You and I are here for Xiao Yan, and they are also here for Xiao Yan. As the saying goes, the enemy of an enemy is a friend. We are currently in a cooperative relationship. Valley Chief's words inevitably cause one to feel a little disappointed. However, Yi Luo Tian merely smiled and shook his head in response to Qin Shua's cold snort. A cold glint flashed across the depths of his sinister old eyes as he laughed sinisterly. What nonsense cooperation! How can I allow others to interfere with the people that I want to deal with? Moreover, you better listen to the old me clearly. The people that the old me wants to kill are Xiao Yan and Lengbing Shuang, not just him. You should also stop comparing the old me with these bastards. Tisk tsk tsk. Valley Master Qin, don't tell me you don't understand the situation from before. If we did not step in, do you think that you can deal with Xiao Yan with just the few of you in the Qin Wasteland Maze Valley? If you really think that we are meddling in other people's business, that's fine too. We will leave now. At that time, let's see how your Qin Wasteland Maze Valley will fight with Xiao Yan. The black-robed person let out a strange laugh the instant Qin Shuo's curse sounded. His scarlet eyes swept over Qin Shuo's and Xiao Yan's groups while his mouth was filled with a cold smile. Qin Shuo's old face involuntarily twitched when he heard the black-robed man's words. Even though he was unwilling to admit it in his heart, this was the truth. Without the help of this group of people, they would not be a match for Xiao Yan's group. After a long while, Qin Shuo finally snorted unwillingly. Soon after, Yi Luotian's gaze landed on him as he chuckled. Valley Master, instead of complaining here, why don't we take advantage of this opportunity to work together and eliminate Xiao Yan's group to prevent endless trouble in the future? Qin Shuo's ferocious gaze immediately landed on Yi Luotian when he heard these words. At the end of the day, all of this was caused by this fellow. Unfortunately, he had no other choice now. He could only deal with Xiao Yan first before discussing the matter between them. Everyone in the Qin Wasteland Maze Valley, listen up. Kill. Qin Shuo waved his hand and pointed at Xiao Yan's group. Soon after, the group from the Qin Wasteland Maze Valley behind him began to shout, "Kill." Their voices filled the sky as wave after wave of powerful auras intertwined in the sky. They were like a tsunami as they viciously pounced towards Xiao Yan's group. In the face of this astonishing scene, the faces of the group behind Xiao Yan turned pale. They were extremely shocked. The battle had only just begun, yet these people had already lost all will to fight, kill. However, it was also at this moment that a large group of people suddenly surged out from behind Xiao Yan's group. Dozens of human figures flew into the sky and charged towards everyone in the Qin Wasteland Maze Valley. Murderous cries sounded from all directions. Their strength was not the least bit inferior to the former. Ha ha ha. Brother Xiao Yan, back then, you saved us from the sea of bitterness. After that, they took the initiative to look for me. They hope that I can lead them to participate in today's big battle and lend you a hand. When Xiao Yan raised his head and looked over, it was likely that the number of experts who had arrived was no less than 40. While Xiao Yan was searching for the source of the sound, Lu Zhongtian's figure slowly landed in front of him. He cupped his hands together in an extremely respectful manner the moment he saw Xiao Yan. As for the group of people who were charging forward, they were naturally the group of elite Do Di that Xiao Yan had saved in the western valley of Flat Mountain not long ago. However, the group today was clearly much larger than a few days ago. Chapter 1100. The sudden appearance of Lu Zhongtian and the group of elite Do Di could be said to be timely assistance to Xiao Yan. The originally disadvantageous situation immediately stabilized with the addition of these people. The 40 people fought with the elite Do Di from the Qin Wasteland Maze Valley. It was difficult to determine a victor within a short period of time and the battle situation immediately stabilized. Ha ha ha, Brother Lu is truly timely assistance. I will remember this matter and will definitely thank everyone after this matter is over. Lu Zhongtian's appearance caused Xiao Yan's heart to immediately relax. The burden on his shoulders seemed to have lightened significantly in an instant. He immediately cupped his hands together towards Lu Zhongtian, his face filled with gratitude. Brother Zhao's words are too serious. You were the one who saved us first. We are extremely honored to be able to help you. Ever since we left the Mountain Pass Valley that day, they came to find me. I relied on my reputation in the western region to find some friends that I made back then. Unfortunately, I was only able to rope in 11 people. It is really true that a friend in need is a friend indeed. Upon hearing this, Xiao Yan involuntarily nodded and sighed. The human heart was like this. Adding flowers to brocade might be valuable, but only by providing timely assistance would one be able to see a person's true feelings. This time around, Lu Zhongtian's actions would undoubtedly change the relationship between Xiao Yan and himself. So it was you, Xiao Yan. No wonder these fellows suddenly disappeared without a trace. It was all because of you. After hearing the conversation between Xiao Yan and Lu Zhongtian, Yi Luotian, who was already extremely vexed over this matter, immediately understood. The one who had saved these people from the mountain pass valley was actually Xiao Yan. It was no wonder that his connection with the dry leaf goo in these people's bodies was severed. With the heavenly flame in his body, Xiao Yan could easily remove the dry leaf goo from his body. Xiao Yan and Lu Zhongtian coldly chuckled as they stared at Yi Luotian, who was currently staring at the both of them with an extremely dark expression. Endless murderous intent surged in their eyes. It was likely that everyone present was determined to kill this bastard. At this moment, there might be a chance for the rest of the people present to survive, but Yi Luotian would definitely die. You all should go as well. These people alone are no match for them. In the sky, the black-robed person glanced at the people who were fighting intensely in front of him. An expression of disdain flashed across his eyes. The role of an elite Dou-Di in this battle was merely cannon fodder. Regardless of how many there were, the final deciding factor was still in the hands of these people. Or perhaps, it could be said that it was in his hands. After all, origin transformation experts were nothing before a returnance expert. The 10 black-robed people nodded in response when the order was given. Their bodies immediately moved, transforming into rays of light that swiftly entered the group of people fighting in front of them. With the addition of these 10 elite Dou-Di, the situation of the battle at the front immediately turned in favor of the Qin Wasteland Maze Valley. Xiao Yan did not dare to be careless when he saw this scene. He raised his hand and waved it. The members of Xiao Gate behind him also charged forward with renewed confidence at this moment. With the addition of Lu Zhongtian's group, the situation between both parties was instantly leveled. In terms of the number of elite Dou-Di, the Xiao Gate had over 10 more than the Qin Wasteland Maze Valley. Defeating the other party was merely a matter of time. Next, it was time for the official experts from both sides to fight. Hall Chief Luo, leave this brat to Valley Chief Qin and I to deal with. As long as you are able to, no, I want to personally exchange blows with Xiao Yan. You are not worthy. Before Yi Luotian's words sounded, the black-robed person by the side suddenly let out a cold snort. His words were filled with disdain. Yi Luotian's expression instantly changed when his words sounded. The black-robed person let out a cold snort when he saw this. I advise you not to have any thoughts that you should not have. Don't think that I am looking down on you. Your cultivation may be quite high, but from what I know, Xiao Yan has never been defeated by anyone of the same cultivation level. Even if the two of you join hands, it is impossible for you to be a match for him. Moreover, he also possesses a heavenly flame, and has an overwhelming advantage over your own affinity. I will not stop you if you wish to seek death. Even though Yi Luotian was extremely unwilling in his heart, he could only clench his teeth and remain silent after this ridicule. He had once exchanged blows with Xiao Yan and clearly understood just how powerful the latter was. He was definitely no match for him. However, the person in front of him actually said that he and Qin Shua would not be a match for Xiao Yan even if they joined hands. This person was really underestimating the two of them. Unfortunately, the person who was currently in control of the situation was the former and not him, Yi Luotian. Even he had no choice but to lower his head in front of this Hall Chief Luo. Xiao Yan, allow me to deal with you. As for the others, Hall Chief Yun first smiled ferociously as he glanced at Xiao Yan. After which, his gaze swept over the two black-robed people behind him. The two of them immediately nodded. Their bodies flashed and they stood in front of him. Soon after, Yi Luo Tian, Qin Shua, and the rest followed close behind. 6 origin transformation experts blocked in front of Xiao Yan's group. Other than Xiao Yan, the other 5 all faced off against an origin transformation expert from the Lost Valley of the Qin Wasteland. Kai, and the giant ape faced off against the 2 origin transformation experts from the Ghost Hall, while Lu Zhongtian and Murong Xian faced off against the 2 origin transformation experts from the Lost Valley of the Qin Wasteland. As for the Valley Master, he naturally faced off against his old enemy, Leng Bingshuang. At this moment, only Yi Luo Tian was still alone in the field. Keek, Valley Master, if the 2 of us work together, we will definitely be able to subdue this woman within 100 moves. Yi Luo Tian immediately let out a strange laugh when he saw that there was no one else present to obstruct him. His sinister eyes then landed on Leng Bingshuang. Leng Bingshuang's expression immediately darkened when she sensed the gazes of the 2. Her heart also became extremely heavy. Leng Bingshuang admitted that she did not possess the strength to face off against 2 experts of the same cultivation level. However, the situation was tense right now, so this was probably the only thing she could do. Boom! However, it was also at this moment that Xiao Yan suddenly waved his sleeve and a black streak of light immediately shot out, heading straight for Yi Luo Tian. The 2 had only clashed for a moment before the powerful force sent Yi Luo Tian flying. When everyone focused their gazes in shock, they saw a purple-gold metal body standing in the air. It indifferently stared at Yi Luo Tian as a murderous aura constantly surged from its body. A puppet. Everyone was shocked when they saw this. With their eyesight, they were naturally able to determine the strength of the puppet. Just from the previous attack, they could tell that its battle prowess was at least at the origin transformation stage. Soon after, everyone's gazes instantly landed on Xiao Yan. An origin transformation stage puppet. It seemed that Xiao Yan was not the only one with a hidden trump card. Even Yi Luo Tian had been hiding a portion of his strength. An origin transformation stage puppet was enough to change the outcome of the battle to a very large extent. Kill him, Northern King. Soon after, Xiao Yan's extremely cold voice rang out. The hovering Northern King indifferently responded with a hoarse voice. His body suddenly moved, turning into a streak of light that viciously collided with Yi Luo Tian in the blink of an eye. A great battle was about to erupt. Chapter 1101. When the Northern King and Yi Luo Tian clashed, Xiao Yan and the others all looked at their opponents. Very soon, Leng Bingshuang and the others clashed with the origin transformation experts on one side of the Maze Valley. At the same time, the 100 Do Di on the other side engaged in an intense battle as well. At this moment, only Xiao Yan and Hall Master Yun continued to stare at each other. At this moment, the 2 of them clearly understood that regardless of whether it was the 100 Do Di or the 12 origin transformation experts from both sides, these people were not the core of this big battle. There were only the 2 of them. The victory or defeat of Xiao Yan or Hall Chief Yun would completely break the stalemate of this big battle. The key to victory or defeat lay with these 2 people. TSK. Xiao Yan, do you know that I've been impatiently waiting for this day for over 20 years? Ever since I heard about you, I've been tempted to personally capture you. Now that we've finally met, don't worry, I'll definitely bring you back this time. A pair of scarlet eyes stared at Xiao Yan like a venomous snake under the black robes. His voice was filled with viciousness. Humph, I've heard these words so many times that I've grown calluses. It's just a pity that you've never succeeded. Xiao Yan replied with a cold smile when he heard this. At the same time, he purposely extended his finger and pinched his ear. This scene caused the face under Hall Chief Yun's mask to twitch repeatedly. What shameless boasting. Today, I'd like to see just how capable the legendary Flame Emperor is. With a shout, Hall Master Yun's figure suddenly flashed. His terrifying speed made him seem like a phantom. The moment his figure vanished, Xiao Yan's expression instantly turned grave. Although that was what he said, his opponent was still a returnance expert after all. In terms of overall strength, Hall Master Yun was far superior to him in every aspect. If he dared to face him with a normal attitude, he would definitely have to pay a huge price. A thought passed through Xiao Yan's mind and the strength in his body immediately agglomerated. The wing elephant skill followed the momentum, and the sky extinction step was also used without the slightest hesitation. A fierce, heavenly flame spread over Xiao Yan's body and protected him within it. The instant Xiao Yan's figure flashed, a chilling killing intent immediately surged from behind him. The sound of rushing wind rang out in Xiao Yan's ears, piercing his eardrums. In the next moment, a withered claw covered in Genesis Chi viciously tore through the space in front of it. Xiao Yan's figure had already vanished. Under the strange mask, a look of surprise appeared in a pair of scarlet-red eyes. Hall Master Yun had never imagined that an advanced origin transformation expert like Xiao Yan would be able to dodge his attack with his speed. Withdrawing his hand, Hall Master Yun narrowed his eyes as he looked at the trace of blood on the side of his little finger. The killing intent in his eyes grew even sharper. He suddenly turned his head and saw Xiao Yan wiping away the tiny trace of blood on the side of his face. At the same time, their gazes clashed once again. Humph, you can actually dodge my attack. How surprising. However, it ends here. After Hall Master Yun uttered these words, his body once again disappeared from the spot. However, Xiao Yan did not dodge this time. Instead, he swiftly lifted his hands and the Genesis Chi within his body rapidly circulated. A ferocious pale blue heavenly flame swiftly gathered above his head, swiftly forming a huge finger. Desolation Finger. Een Bone Claw. In an instant, Hall Master Yun's body once again appeared a short distance in front of Xiao Yan. At the same time, a layer of solidified Genesis Chi cuticle wrapped around her extended hand. Wave after wave of ruthless killing intent spread from it. A thin layer of blood fog also spread when it was formed. 5 sharp claws easily tore through the invisible space, and the biting cold aura made one's heart tremble. Boom! Soon after, the two powerful Do techniques violently collided together. A soul-stirring explosion immediately spread over the sand river. An energy storm swept over with it. Everyone in the city below had a drastic change in expression because of this soul-stirring attack. Even Leng Bing Xuan, Qin Shua, and the others, who were currently engaged in an intense battle, could not help but turn their heads to look at Xiao Yan and Hall Chief Yun. After the storm scattered, the eyes of everyone in the sky and on the ground looked to the middle of the explosion. All they could see was Xiao Yan and Hall Chief Yun's sharp attacks violently colliding with each other. A muffled collision sound spread across the sky. Every punch struck flesh. Each strike was incomparably heavy. This kind of collision did not have too many fancy moves, nor did it require any skills. It was just a head-on collision using the most violent method. The outcome of this battle would depend on who could last the longest. Every part of their bodies that could come into contact with each other became their strongest weapons in such an intense collision. Whether it was their limbs, elbows, knees, chests, or backs, anything that could be used had become the fiercest weapon in the collision. His clothes were like metal, and his skin was like steel. The intense collision lasted for 15 minutes. During the entire process, the expression of the returnance expert under the mask was extremely ugly. The bright light in her scarlet eyes had dimmed slightly because of this. God damn it. Has this kid's body become so tough? My attacks can't harm him at all. When the fists of the two violently collided once again, Hall Chief Yun's body was miserably forced back by over a dozen steps. On the other hand, Xiao Yan's body stood in the empty air without moving. His skinny body hid a frightening dragon-like strength. The moment Hall Master Yun froze, Xiao Yan suddenly approached him. His face was extremely sharp, and he did not hide the killing intent in his eyes at all. He clenched his right hand into a fist, and terrifying force rapidly condensed. He directly threw a punch at Hall Master Yun's head. Even as a returnance expert, Hall Master Yun was not Xiao Yan's opponent in terms of physical strength. He had suffered greatly this time. In the blink of an eye, Xiao Yan's fist, which had smashed down, was only a couple of inches from Hall Chief Yun's head. The latter's heart trembled. Soon after, a roar that was filled with fury was suddenly emitted. "God damn it, get out of my way, you brat!" A furious roar was emitted as Hall Master Yun suddenly rolled his sleeves. Surging Genesis Chi gathered, causing his black sleeves to become as hard as metal in an instant as they ruthlessly met Xiao Yan's fist that was descending from above. Clang! The sound of metal colliding rang out, and Hall Master Yun's expression turned fierce. However, just as Hall Master Yun was about to attack again, Xiao Yan's fist violently jerked, and an even more terrifying force surged out. Under Hall Master Yun's terrified gaze, the black sleeves wrapped in Genesis Chi were blasted to pieces. Chapter 1102. The moment the sleeve shattered, Xiao Yan's fist viciously slammed into Hall Master Yun's masked face. Although most of the force had been blocked by the Genesis Chi, the remaining force still distorted Hall Master Yun's face. Strangely, the mask that originally covered his face did not budge at all under Xiao Yan's fist. The mask flew out and was caught by Xiao Yan's hand. Hall Chief Yun's body continued to fly back. Only when he was hundreds of feet away did he stabilize his body while trembling all over. When he raised his head, a slightly distorted dark old face under the black robe was revealed. His deeply sunken eye sockets were scarlet, and the right half of his old face had turned purple. There were even traces of blood flowing out from it. The black robe he wore was already tattered, and his entire person was in a sorry state from the inside out. It was very difficult to believe that a returnance expert would be reduced to such a state from the attacks of an origin transformation expert. If any other person saw this, they would probably doubt the authenticity of his cultivation at returnance. Soon after, Hall Chief Yun's expression changed once again when he saw the mask in Xiao Yan's hand. The left side of his old face, which was filled with wrinkles, involuntarily twitched. The scarlet glow in his eyes, which had originally dimmed, suddenly surged. A ferocious killing intent wildly gathered in his heart. Xiao Yan, die! A somewhat hoarse roar was ruthlessly emitted from Hall Master Yun's throat like the roar of a ferocious beast. At the same time, the Genesis Chi within his body began to flow wildly. He waved his large hand and one could hear the ear-piercing sound of chains colliding. Soon after, numerous strange dark black chains suddenly shot out from behind Hall Master Yun. They were just like poisonous snakes as they penetrated through space and ruthlessly pierced toward Xiao Yan with lightning-like speed. Over a dozen chains appeared in front of Xiao Yan in the blink of an eye. Whooshing sounds continuously rang out as the sharp tips of the chains revolved around Xiao Yan, attacking him from every direction. Xiao Yan's expression sank when he saw this scene. He clenched his large hand and the dark black heavy Xian ruler appeared inch by inch under the wrapping of the heavenly flame. The moment the enormous ruler appeared in his hand, the 10+ chains had already arrived in front of Xiao Yan. Quickly following this, Xiao Yan swung his arm and the huge ruler in his hand danced. The wide and thick blade of the ruler violently sent the numerous dark black chains that were shooting toward him flying. Sparks shot out and clear, clang, sounds of collision sounded one after another. Within a couple of breaths, the 10+ chains surrounding Xiao Yan's body were all forced back. It was at this moment that Hall Master Yun's figure suddenly appeared behind Xiao Yan like a ghost. A ghostly hand viciously swiped towards Xiao Yan's head. Die! However, the moment Hall Chief Yun's claw landed, Xiao Yan, who was originally facing him, suddenly turned around in an extremely strange manner. At the same time, a fist, which was covered by purple gold scale armor, was suddenly swung out and violently collided with the former's ghost hand. Bang! The moment the two collided, they separated. The muffled sound of the collision was like muffled thunder. Hall Master Yun's body jerked and forcefully removed the force from his arm. On the other hand, Xiao Yan's figure was miserably pushed back dozens of steps. After which, he stabilized his body with a solemn expression. The moment he lifted his head, the heavenly fire filled his eyes. The heavenly fire in his hand had already disappeared. Huh! Hall Master Yun could not help but exclaim in surprise when he sensed this. How could the heavy Xian ruler, which was clearly in Xiao Yan's hand a moment ago, suddenly disappear? 7-layered sky-breaking ruler. However, at this moment, a stern cry was suddenly heard from behind him. When Hall Master Yun turned his head to look, he saw that there was another Xiao Yan in the empty space not far behind him. This, however, before Hall Master Yun could ponder any further, the startling ruler glow that had merged into one had already arrived in front of him. It was impossible to dodge. However, when the ruler glow ruthlessly struck Hall Master Yun's body, a strange scene suddenly appeared. A large cluster of extremely viscous liquid suddenly appeared in front of Hall Master Yun. At the same time, it formed a huge barrier that blocked Hall Master Yun behind it. The majestic ruler glow was completely blocked by the strange viscous liquid. The incomparably powerful ruler glow ruthlessly struck the cluster of viscous liquid. It was like a huge rock smashing into a swamp. Under Xiao Yan's shocked gaze, the ruler glow sank deeply. In the end, all the energy attached to the ruler glow was actually completely swallowed by the strange viscous liquid. Huff! After withdrawing the strange viscous liquid, Hall Master Yun's gaze landed on Xiao Yan opposite him. At the same time, the surprise in his eyes gradually returned to normal. So it's just a clone, he said with a deep voice. Immediately after, Hall Master Yun's figure flashed and appeared in front of the clone in an instant. She extended her hand and slammed it into the clone's chest. At the same time, Xiao Yan on the other side hurriedly controlled his avatar and detonated the energy within his body. After Xiao Yan's cultivation had broken through to the origin transformation realm, the 9 clones remained at the level of Do Emperors. Even when they fused together, the clone's strength was only at the level of a 9-star Do Emperor. It was impossible for him to face Hall Master Yun, who was a returnance expert, with such strength. The sneak attack from behind was already the limit of what he could do. I'll make you explode. Seeing that the clone in front of her was about to self-destruct, a ruthless look suddenly flashed in Hall Master Yun's eyes. Her attack speed and strength became even more ferocious. Before the clone could react, her attack pierced through the latter's chest. Then, with a sudden jolt, a terrifying power suddenly poured out, shattering the clone. Afterwards, Hall Master Yun slowly turned around. His vicious gaze landed on Xiao Yan once again. Not bad. It's just a pity that your clone's cultivation is too low. Humph, he's not worthy to injure me, he coldly sneered. As he spoke, the strange, viscous liquid from before appeared on the surface of Hall Master Yun's body once again. It crawled like a living creature and covered the surface of Hall Master Yun's body. No wonder. No wonder you were able to counterattack in that situation earlier. So it's because of the power of ways. Xiao Yan's expression also appeared calm when he heard this. However, there was an additional fear in his gaze when he looked at the strange sticky liquid on the surface of the former's body. With his eyesight, he could obviously tell that the strange liquid was a type of power of ways. However, he had never thought that Hall Master Yun's control over the power of ways had already reached such a level. Xiao Yan had to admit that he was unable to control the power of ways so well that he could wield them like an extension of his body. He had to admit that as a returnance expert, Hall Master Yun did have something he could be proud of. Humph, you're the first origin transformation expert I've seen to be able to make me use the power of ways. However, this is where it ends, because my grand Tao of darkness will definitely engulf you in boundless darkness. In an instant, when Hall Master Yun's words left her mouth, a pitch-black viscous liquid spread out like a tide, completely enveloping the battlefield where the two of them were. The world around the two of them also became dark. Chapter 1103. In a strange dark space, a figure wrapped in light blue flames was standing in the middle. The blazing flames released bright light and scorching heat, causing the space around him to distort. Beneath the flames, a pair of eyes that also shone with light blue flames was carefully observing the space he was in. Surging soul power gushed out from his mind and spread out in all directions like a tide. He carefully explored the surrounding world inch by inch. The dark black space appeared like a night without any stars or moon. Wherever Xiaoyan's spiritual strength passed, there would be an endless darkness. The strangest thing was that the endless darkness contained an extremely strange strength. If Xiaoyan did not possess the protection of the heavenly flame, it was likely that an ordinary person would have difficulty barely surviving in this place, much less using their spiritual strength. This is the great way of darkness? Beneath the flames, a pair of eyes flickered. A fierce look flashed in the depths of his eyes. It was indeed the great way of darkness. This great way of darkness was probably the most tyrannical great way of darkness that Xiaoyan had ever seen. Even his void great way was definitely inferior to it. Of course, a large part of the reason was due to the difference in cultivation between them. If it wasn't so, Xiaoyan definitely wouldn't be afraid of Hall Master Huang. However, the thing that surprised Xiaoyan the most was that after using his spiritual strength to investigate earlier, he was unable to find traces of Hall Chief Yun within this darkness. It was as though he had completely disappeared from this place. However, Xiaoyan clearly understood that it was impossible for Hall Chief Yun to leave this place if he wanted to use this method to unleash the strength of the Great Tao. Otherwise, the Great Tao of darkness that had trapped him would also disappear. However, since Hall Master Huang was in this strange space, why couldn't he sense his aura at all? This point caused Xiaoyan's heart to be extremely surprised. TSK 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 TSK. Xiaoyan, welcome to my domain of darkness. Here, I'll let you experience the full power of the great way of darkness. However, it was also at this moment that Hall Master Yun's dark and sorrowful strange laughter suddenly sounded beside Xiaoyan's ear. The voice was so close that it appeared as though it was right next to his ear, causing Xiaoyan's mind to suddenly tremble. He subconsciously dodged to one side. At the same time, he flipped his hand and violently threw a punch in the opposite direction. The powerful force forcefully squeezed out a vacuum in this dense space. Qi. However, it was also at the next moment when Xiaoyan's fist was swung forward that a qi sound that penetrated through space suddenly sounded behind him. At the same time, a sharp, dark black spear tip that was as sharp as ink violently pierced toward Xiaoyan's waist from an extremely tricky angle. At such a close distance, Xiaoyan was unable to dodge it given his current condition. What? This sudden attack caused Xiaoyan's heart to be greatly startled. He did not have the time to do much. A thought passed through his mind and the flame on the surface of his body moved as he wished. It agglomerated into a heavenly flame armor in an instant. At the same time, the golden elephant's skill was unleashed under the armor. A golden light protected his body. Adding the dragon phoenix ancient armor, this attack of Hall Chief Yun was blocked regardless of how tricky it was. Clang! When the heavy collision sounded, Xiaoyan's body couldn't help but tremble. His figure flew forward in a sorry state. Although the defense on his body had successfully blocked the impact of the strange spear tip, the tyrannical force still caused Xiaoyan's body, which was under the armor, to tremble in pain. Heh, a ghost that only knows how to secretly play tricks. What, is this all your so-called great Tao of darkness has? It seems that I have overestimated you. His body jerked, and as the Genesis Qi in his body circulated, the pain in Xiaoyan's body lessened significantly. Then, under the flames, a pair of ice-cold eyes swept across the strange space in front of him, and the corners of his mouth curved into a sinister smile. As his voice faded, Xiaoyan quickly lifted his hands. He clenched and released his hands, and two flames of completely different colors appeared in his palms. They were the bone-chilling fire and the sea heart flame. Then, under Hall Master Huang's horrified gaze, Xiaoyan fiercely clapped his hands together, and the two balls of flames in his hands were kneaded together. From the looks of it, Xiao Yan was preparing to condense the angry Buddha lotus flame. It was difficult for an ordinary attack to be effective against an opponent like Hall Qifyun. Moreover, they were in this strange space that was covered by the Great Way of Darkness. Only by quickly resolving the Great Way of Darkness would Xiao Yan have more opportunities to exchange blows with Hall Qifyun. Only by doing so would Xiao Yan be able to defeat him. Humph, kid, don't underestimate others. I have specially prepared the Great Tao of Darkness for you. How can I let you easily condense that strange fire lotus? At this moment, the low and deep voice of Hall Qifyun was once again transmitted over from the surrounding space. Soon after, a countless number of chi-chi air-splitting sounds appeared in the dark black space around Xiao Yan. Numerous energy forces violently pierced toward Xiao Yan. The powerful attacks caused one's eyes to be dazzled. It was difficult to imagine. Within a couple of breaths, the fire glow on the heavenly flame armor on Xiao Yan's body had become much dimmer. Great Tao of Darkness, swallow those flames. Hall Master Huang's sharp cry sounded. Waves of viscous liquid like Great Tao of Darkness followed and covered the armor that Xiao Yan was wearing. Immediately, a sizzling sound was emitted from the flames. At the same time, a dense fog accompanied the sizzling sound. Adding the continuous attacks from the energy pillars, only a thin layer of the heavenly flame armor remained on Xiao Yan's body. It looked as though it would break apart at any moment. As for the flame between Xiao Yan's hands, it appeared that it was still an intense merger. However, it appeared that there was still a very long distance before it could truly merge. This point was completely different from the merger process that Xiao Yan had experienced in the past. Qi. At a certain moment, when the flame armor on Xiao Yan's body broke apart, Hall Master Huang's figure suddenly appeared in front of Xiao Yan in an extremely strange manner. One of his hands turned into a claw and forcefully separated Xiao Yan's hands from his. The two types of flames between his palms also dissipated without any backlash. Let's see what other tricks you have without the fire lotus. Die, however, before Hall Master Huang could finish his last word, a heart-wrenching pain instantly caused his face to distort uncontrollably. An extremely terrifying force was viciously twisting his arm. Under that force, his entire arm seemed to be twisting violently, as though his bones were about to be broken. Ah! An extremely miserable roar erupted from Hall Master Yun's mouth. His other hand viciously grabbed the wrist of his injured arm, as if he wanted to resist the terrifying power. However, the more he exerted force, the more terrified he felt from the pain brought about by the twisting power. When Hall Master Yun forcefully endured the pain and looked over, he only saw a strange black steel needle in his injured palm. It was mercilessly stabbed deep into his palm and arm. The terrifying twisting power came from this needle. Xiao Yan, you, don't think that the power of the Great Tao only belongs to you. I know that you understand my means very well, but that is only limited to the Douqi continent. Don't forget that this is the Yuanwu continent. I have more than one way to deal with you. Xiao Yan's body abruptly disappeared from the spot the moment his voice sounded. In the next moment, Xiao Yan's figure once again appeared in front of Hall Master Yun under Hall Master Yun's terrified gaze. His hand, which was covered by a layer of Genesis Qi, ruthlessly landed on Hall Master Yun's chest. Intent Class Do Technique, Heart-Shattering Palm. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 1104. Intent Tier Battle Technique, Heart-Shattering Palm. The instant the cry from Xiao Yan's mouth sounded, his hand, which was covered in Genesis Qi, mercilessly pressed against Hall Master Yun's chest. The powerful force caused Hall Master Yun's heart to rapidly tremble. A deep fear uncontrollably rose from the bottom of his heart. It was difficult to imagine that Xiao Yan, whose cultivation was clearly much weaker than his, was able to unleash such a powerful force. Although he was already aware of Xiao Yan's strength, he was only able to clearly understand just how frightening Xiao Yan was after personally facing it. However, he was still a returnance expert after all. Even if Xiao Yan possessed extraordinary battle prowess, there was still a chance for Hall Master Yun to retaliate if he used his full strength. Tao of Darkness, Tao Materialization. The moment Xiao Yan's hand pressed against Hall Master Yun's chest, the sticky, pitch-black power of the Great Tao rapidly enveloped the area. At the same time, all the power of the Great Tao in the surroundings began to churn violently as if they were alive. They twisted and twisted, turning into pitch-black vines that rapidly wrapped around Xiao Yan's body in an attempt to stop Xiao Yan's movements. With the obstruction of the power of the Great Tao, Xiao Yan's body began to rapidly slow down. In the end, he was basically unable to move at all. The pitch-black liquid wrapped around his golden body and even covered his face. Bzz, finally, Xiao Yan's entire body was wrapped into an enormous cocoon under the unreasonable entanglement and tearing of the Great Tao of Darkness. The strength that had been imprinted on Hall Chief Yun's chest and was about to erupt was forcefully stopped. It was even pulled apart by a couple of inches. This caused Hall Chief Yun, whose heart was pounding wildly, to exhale a long breath at this moment. Bean-sized droplets of perspiration gathered and fell from his old face. After which, they were swallowed by the endless darkness. Humph, Xiao Yan, no matter how strong you are, you still can't change the fact that you're only at the origin transformation stage. The difference between cultivation levels can't be changed with brute force alone. A mocking voice was spat out from Hall Master Yun's mouth when his expression returned to normal. By relying on his powerful cultivation, he had ultimately managed to stop Xiao Yan. Although his earlier action had exhausted a lot of Genesis Qi in his body, he was still quite satisfied with the result. However, the answer to everything was not as simple as one imagined. The moment Hall Chief Yun uttered these words, Xiao Yan, who had been wrapped by the Great Tao of Darkness, suddenly moved. Chi chi chi, with a series of intense sizzling sounds, wisps of fire suddenly shot out from under the power of the Great Tao. At the same time, they were mixed with golden light. What? Hall Master Yun cried out in alarm. The power of the Great Tao wrapping around Xiao Yan's body was swiftly devoured by the fierce flames burning on Xiao Yan's body. From this point, it wasn't difficult to see that even the power of the Great Tao was inferior to the mysterious flames. Heart-shattering palm. Then, Xiao Yan's palm, which didn't weaken in the slightest, slammed into Hall Master Yun's chest. Puchi. Ferocious destructive power invaded Hall Master Feng's body in an instant, and powerful Genesis Qi attacked his internal organs. Most importantly, one of the most powerful forces was attacking his heart, making his chest feel as though it was about to be torn apart. Ah! The indescribable pain caused Hall Master Yun to involuntarily emit a heart-wrenching cry. Her voice became hoarse, and the red light in her scarlet eyes gradually dimmed. Her face was filled with disbelief. Her body twitched, and mouthful after mouthful of fresh blood was spat out from her mouth. Her aura had become much weaker in an instant. Boom! Soon after, another low and deep muffled sound appeared. The strength contained within the heart-shattering palm was completely unleashed within Hall Chief Yun's body at this moment. Despite her trying her best to resist, she was destined to be injured by Xiao Yan's heart-shattering palm. Then, Hall Master Yun's body was sent flying backwards uncontrollably. The black mist shrouding his body dissipated, and his skinny body was blasted out of the domain of darkness by Xiao Yan. At the same time, the domain of darkness also dissipated. Xiao Yan's face was pale, and the flames on his body gradually faded away. His chest was heaving up and down, and his heavy breathing indicated his current situation. While the heart-shattering palm was powerful, it also consumed a tremendous amount of Genesis Qi. Xiao Yan had consumed more than half of his Genesis Qi with this attack, and it was impossible for him to use any of his other trump cards. At this moment, Xiao Yan could only hope that this attack didn't waste the majority of his Genesis Qi. The sudden unexpected change in the sky caused the many experts who were fighting in the battleground to turn their eyes over. Numerous gazes that were filled with various emotions swiftly landed on Xiao Yan and Hall Chief Yun. Immediately, the expressions of everyone present changed. As a returnance expert, Hall Master Yun was in a horrible shape. Large patches of blood covered his body, which completely displayed his current situation to everyone. The hearts of the experts from the Lost Valley of the Qin Wastelands could not help but sink at this sight. They never thought that even a returnance expert like Hall Master Yun would be unable to do anything to Xiao Yan. Of course, while Hall Chief Yun was seriously injured, Xiao Yan was not in a much better state at this moment. His clothes were in tatters and his hair was in a mess. His face appeared extremely pale without the slightest trace of blood. His aura was extremely weak. His body, which was standing in the air, involuntarily swayed. It was as though he would fall from the sky at any moment. Xiao Yan, Leng Bingshuang immediately became slightly surprised when she saw this. She could not help but charge toward Xiao Yan, but she was stopped by Qin Shuo. Qin Shuo stared at Leng Bingshuang with his venomous eyes filled with killing intent. With a sudden movement, he charged toward Leng Bingshuang viciously. At the same time, he said in a chilling voice, "Bitch, do you still have the time to worry about others at a time like this? You better worry about yourself first." With that, he collided with Leng Bingshuang once again under her extremely cold gaze. This time, the collision between the two of them was much more brutal than before. On the other side, Yi Luotian narrowed his eyes as he stared at the miserable-looking Hall Chief Yun. His heart involuntarily felt shocked. At the same time, he rejoiced that he was not the one facing Xiao Yan. Otherwise, his fate would likely be even more miserable than Hall Chief Yun's. Cough, 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 in the sky, Xiao Yan and Hall Master Yun raised their heads at the same time. Their eyes met, and a cold killing intent appeared in their eyes. "I have underestimated you. As expected, this chief has still underestimated your ability. After not seeing you for a few years, you have already grasped even more information than us. You are actually able to grasp something as frightening as an E-class Do technique. It must be said that this is our miscalculation. It is our fault for allowing you to live until now. However, this chief has also said that this time around, I will definitely bring you back, even if I have to pay a great price." A crazed expression that caused one's heart to turn cold surfaced on Hall Master Yun's face when he reached the end of his words. After which, he violently bit the tip of his tongue and a blood arrow shot out. Under his control, it floated in the air in front of him and turned into a thumb-sized blood droplet. After this blood droplet shot out, Hall Master Yun's originally pale face instantly turned completely white. His originally skinny old face appeared to have aged by dozens of years in an instant. His entire person was like a withered tree, appearing extremely horrifying. However, when one looked at his eyes again, there was not the slightest dimness. Instead, there was an even brighter glow and he appeared to be filled with energy. From this, one could see that spitting out this cluster of blood was a great price for Hall Master Yun. However, he did not hesitate in order to capture Xiao Yan today. "Xiao Yan, no matter what happens today, I will definitely bring you back." His hoarse voice resounded throughout the area. At the same time, Hall Master Yun rapidly formed a seal with his hands and the blood droplet floating in front of him began to churn violently. Spirit devouring Yin. Suddenly, Hall Master Yun slammed his palm on the blood droplet that had condensed into a strange blood-colored rune. The blood immediately burst open and turned into a large blood fog. Waves of dense black fog also spread out at an alarming speed. The black fog churned and strange cries that sounded like ferocious ghosts constantly emitted from it, causing one to shudder in fear. Before Xiao Yan could do anything, the black fog had already spread to a large area of several hundred feet. It was like a small dark cloud that shrouded the sky above Shahi Pai. As for the people in the city below, they looked at the scene in the sky curiously. Other than a few people who were surprised, most of them looked on from the side as if it had nothing to do with them. However, they did not know that when Hall Master Yun's gaze swept past these people, it was as if he had seen a delicacy. Savagery and greed involuntarily flowed out from his eyes. These busybodies had unknowingly become the sacrifices of this battle. They could only blame themselves for this. These fearless busybodies would pay with their lives in the end. Xiao Yan, you used an intent tier Do skill earlier. You must not have much Genesis Qi left in your body. Turning his head, Hall Master Yun stared at Xiao Yan with a vicious smile. He clearly knew that they were on par with each other if they did not use any external methods. However, as a returnance expert, he did not accept the fact that he had lost. His current craziness was not only for the mission from above but also to prove to Xiao Yan the difference between them. Xiao Yan was noncommittal in the face of this. His pair of dark black eyes were filled with uneasiness as they stared at the strange dark cloud in the sky. He could sense an extremely dense bloody aura from it. That kind of strength that was filled with cruelty caused even him to feel a wave of coldness. Keek keek. Fiendish Een devours spirit, devour the world, devour. At Hall Master Huang's command, a strange squeaking sound suddenly came from the depths of the dark clouds in the sky. Immediately after, under the horrified gazes of the people in the city, huge balls of black fog fell from the sky like meteorites. Their target was the people who were watching the great battle in the Sand River at this moment. Immediately, the expressions of everyone in the city changed drastically. Do Qi rapidly surged out from their bodies in an attempt to block the black mist falling from the sky. Of course, there were some strong-willed people in the crowd who wanted to use their own strength to forcefully collide with the black fog. However, the moment the black fog came into contact with their bodies, it seemed to have turned into a large amount of viscous liquid that rapidly spread across their bodies. The most terrifying thing was that as it spread, it actually emitted a terrifying sound of teeth grinding and chewing. At the same time, the experts who were wrapped in the black fog couldn't help but let out extremely miserable screams one after another. The black mist was actually devouring the bodies of these experts. It was not just their bodies. Even their Do Qi and souls were being mercilessly devoured by the strange black mist. This kind of method could be called inhumane. In an instant, the Sand River, which had been calm a moment ago, had become chaotic. Regardless of whether one flew in the sky or on the ground, as long as one was in contact with the black mist, there would be a miserable painful cry being emitted. At the same time, the strength that the black mist had devoured was completely absorbed by Hall Master Yun. Hall Master Yun involuntarily raised her head and exhaled a long breath as she sensed the strength that was swiftly filling her body. Xiao Yan, who was in the empty space on the opposite side, watched this scene in the city below. His heart suddenly sank. After which, his eyes paused on Hall Master Yun's body. He held his breath and focused before speaking in a deep voice. Your race really treats human lives as less valuable than grass. Tisk tsk tsk tsk, you can't put it this way. There is no free lunch in this world. They have come to watch a show, so they should leave something behind. Being able to be of use to me can be considered as not wasting their lives. Hall Master Yun's reply was merely a cold sneer in the face of Xiao Yan's words. Soon after, a low cry was emitted from her mouth. The black mist that filled the sky once again smashed into the city like dense raindrops. Hall Master Yun's aura swiftly rose amidst a series of painful cries. Although it could not be compared to when she was at her peak, she could still be described as powerful. If Hall Master Yun were to attack Xiao Yan at this moment, it was likely that the latter would not even be able to last one exchange. Unfortunately, he did not. Without being affected by the unexpected change in the city, Xiao Yan minded his own business and closed his eyes. His aura gradually recovered its calmness. The golden light that covered his body flickered slightly. Chapter 1105. The intense battle between the Shao Gate and the Qin Wasteland's Maze Valley continued. As time went on, the stalemate gradually became clear. There were close to 200 Dodi fighting on both sides. At this moment, the originally balanced situation had begun to shift in the Shao Gate's favor. Even in the battle between the origin transformation experts on the other side, the heaven-reaching ape had already defeated his opponent with lightning-like speed. Qin Shuo, who was battling Leng Bingshuang, was also surprised to find that Leng Bingshuang's strength had risen to a whole new level in less than 10 days. He was no longer Leng Bingshuang's match when he used his full strength. Amongst these individuals, the one who felt the most unbearable pain was undoubtedly Yi Luotian. He had spent his entire life cultivating poison, and after many years of training, not only had his qi techniques completely fused with his body, even the Genesis qi he absorbed and refined had become incomparably toxic. Although he would not easily display it, his opponents would definitely complain incessantly once he made a move. However, he had run into a tough nut to crack today. As a puppet, no matter how he collided with the Northern King with poison, even if he wanted to use poison to corrode the puppet, it was all to no avail. Not only was the Northern King not afraid of his poison, it was even completely unaffected by it. No matter how he attacked, it was all to no avail. On the other hand, if the Northern King's fist touched his body, it would definitely cause him serious injuries. Although both of them were at the origin transformation stage, the gap between them was truly unbearable. It was precisely because of this that Yi Luotian was in danger of being heavily injured by the Northern King from the very beginning of their clash. As a result, there were already dozens of wounds of various sizes on his body, and many of his bones were broken. As for Kai, Murongxian and the others, although they had yet to defeat their opponents, they were not at a disadvantage. With the giant ape by their side, defeating the origin transformation experts in the Qin Wasteland's Maze Valley was only a matter of time. Of course, the battle that attracted the most attention was still the one between Xiao Yan and Hall Master Luo. The painful and miserable cries in the city lasted for nearly 15 minutes. During this time, Hall Master Luo frantically devoured the Doqi energy that had been stolen. Clumps of black mist became incomparably viscous after being devoured and returned to Hall Master Luo's body with a tremendous amount of energy. As the viscous black mist entered Hall Master Luo's body, his body began to squirm strangely. His originally skinny body gradually swelled up. First, it was his abdomen, then his chest, his limbs, and finally his entire head. As Temple Master Yun's body began to swell, the expression on his face also began to distort. It was clear that he was in great pain at this time. In order to obtain power, he had resorted to such extreme means. The undead that he had devoured would eventually become the cause of his own death. In just a few minutes, Hall Master Yun's body had swelled to several times its original size. His entire body had become abnormally bloated, and he looked like a monster. His puffed-up chest wriggled involuntarily, as if there was another life beneath it. Hall Master Yun could not help but open his mouth and let out an extremely strange cry. However, the power in his body was still increasing at an extremely fast rate. Xiao Yan's face was still pale. His eyes were closed, and his hands were behind his back. His black robes fluttered without any wind, and the golden light on his body had stopped flickering. He was extremely calm, as if everything before him had nothing to do with him. His presence was completely concealed within his body. If it were not for the fact that he was still breathing through his nose, people would have mistaken him for a dead person. This situation continued until Hall Master Luo finished absorbing the black mist. Xiao Yan's tightly shut eyes suddenly opened, and a fierce look appeared on his pale face. The moment his pitch-black eyes opened, his gaze fell on Hall Master Luo. As he glanced at the latter, who had completely turned into a monster, a mocking look flashed across Xiao Yan's eyes. Luo's pursuit of power had resulted in him becoming a monster that was neither human nor ghost. Was it all worth it? He, Xiao Yan, prepare to die. Noticing Xiao Yan's gaze, Hall Master Luo once again let out a strange laugh. This time, even his voice had become extremely strange. It was as if countless ferocious ghosts were roaring at the same time, causing one to tremble in fear upon hearing it. After Hall Master Luo spoke, his enormous body suddenly charged toward Xiao Yan. His enormous body charged forward in a tyrannical manner, and powerful energy condensed in front of him. His entire body charged forward like a wild bull. In the blink of an eye, he had already arrived in front of Xiao Yan. Hall Master Luo waved his enormous fist, which was several times larger than Xiao Yan's body, and viciously smashed it down on Xiao Yan. However, Xiao Yan remained indifferent to all of the actions of Hall Chief Yun. His eyes were icy cold as he looked at Hall Chief Yun, who was already in front of him. The enormous fist was swiftly magnified in his dark black eyes. After which, bang! The fist that came in a ferocious manner finally smashed heavily into the empty space in front of Xiao Yan. There seemed to be an invisible wall in this empty space that had forcefully blocked Hall Master Luo's punch, which could instantly kill a 9-star Do Di. What? The appearance of this scene caused Hall Master Luo's eyes to suddenly shrink. His mouth involuntarily let out an exclamation. How could his attack be blocked? Did Xiao Yan, who had already reached such a state, still have a trump card? Withdraw. In the next moment, Xiao Yan, whose eyes were ice-cold, suddenly uttered a word. At the same time, an extremely powerful and invisible force suddenly charged out from Xiao Yan's body. It was like a hurricane that whistled out with the force of a mountain. Without giving the other party any chance to react, it violently smashed into Hall Master Luo's body and instantly forced his body back. Hall Master Luo raised his head with a face of disbelief. He saw that at this moment, there was an enormous illusory figure standing outside of Xiao Yan's body. The appearance of that illusory figure was undoubtedly Xiao Yan himself. When Hall Master Luo's gaze swept over, Xiao Yan finally slowly raised his hand. The movement of the illusory figure was also synchronized with the movement of his hand. Under Hall Master Luo's surprised gaze, Xiao Yan's hand suddenly clenched. One could hear the sound of metal colliding. At the spot where the hand of the illusory figure had clenched, a layer of golden light suddenly appeared on the originally invisible body. It was like a ripple that swiftly spread throughout his entire body. Finally, it transformed into an enormous golden illusory figure that stood in front of Hall Master Luo with an imposing manner. This was the final move of the Four-Saint Manifestation skill, the Giant Elephant skill. In order to use the Giant Elephant skill, one must learn the first 3 moves in succession. Not only must one complete the practice, but one must also master the 3 moves and borrow the strength of the 3 moves to use the Giant Elephant skill. Chapter 1106. After forcing Hall Master Luo back, Xiao Yan turned his attention back to himself. Xiao Yan sensed that the muscles and bones all over his body were filled with an explosive strength that appeared to be burning. His heart involuntarily exclaimed in surprise at the strength of this Giant Elephant skill. Compared to the first 3 skills of the 4 Sacred Elephant Display skill, the strength that the Giant Elephant skill gave Xiao Yan was even greater. That kind of strength had more than doubled compared to before. It was far from what any of the 3 Sacred Elephant skill could compare with. But on second thought, it made sense. The Giant Elephant art was the product of the integration of the 3 arts, and it combined all the characteristics and advantages of the 3 arts. How could its power be the same? Then, Xiao Yan's gaze shifted to the giant illusory image formed from pure force around his body. It was likely that the illusory image was the essence of the Giant Elephant art. Although it looked illusory on the surface, the heavy oppressive force it gave off was unique, and even the diamond glass body couldn't compare to it. Although the first 3 formulas could agglomerate an illusory image after practicing them, the usage of each formula was different. Naturally, the effect would be different. After merging the 3 formulas with the Giant Elephant skill, Xiao Yan would be able to achieve a perfect attack and defense with the Giant Elephant skill. Xiao Yan even had complete confidence in his own speed. He would definitely not be inferior in any way. The advantage of the Wing Elephant art was that it could increase a practitioner's speed in all aspects. Coupled with the Heaven Annihilation step and the formation of the Giant Elephant art, Xiao Yan's overall strength had risen to a whole new level in an instant. Even without the protection of Genesis Qi, Xiao Yan's strength couldn't be underestimated. Hall Master Luo wasn't in a hurry to kill Xiao Yan at the most critical moment. This would most likely become the mistake he would regret the most in his life. So you still have the strength to resist. But so what? You're already an arrow at the end of its flight. Let's see how big of a wave you can stir up. After a moment of surprise, Hall Master Luo relaxed a lot when he realized that Xiao Yan wasn't using Genesis Qi. After all, Genesis Qi was the true representation of power in this world, and brute force alone wouldn't be able to support it for long. This wasn't a threat to Hall Master Luo at all. Ghost Seal. Soon after, Hall Chief Yun's hands swiftly formed a seal. The black fog that lingered around her body also began to churn intensely. Soon, it agglomerated into a cluster of black fog the size of a soccer ball in front of her. The strangest thing was that a strange human face had appeared in front of the black fog. That human face was still struggling and wiggling at this moment. Its mouth was wide open and its face was filled with an extremely painful expression. Soon after, Hall Chief Yun forcefully pushed forward and this cluster of strange black fog violently charged toward Xiao Yan. Seeing the painful expression on Master Black Fog's face, Xiao Yan didn't need to think too much to know that the face belonged to one of the experts that Hall Master Luo had swallowed earlier. He didn't expect Hall Master Luo to be so insidious. Not only had he swallowed someone alive, but he had even used the spirit that had yet to dissipate as a Do skill. In this world, only people like Ghost Hall could do such a thing. To think that you won't even let off a dead person. What a bunch of inhumane beasts. With a furious curse, Xiao Yan's gaze swiftly landed on the cluster of black fog that was heading toward him. His eyes were sharp as he spread his right hand. His arm was extended and raised in front of him before slamming it down heavily. At the same time, he opened his mouth and said, "As for you, let me free you." Bang! The moment Xiao Yan's words faded, the huge illusory hand abruptly slammed down and smashed the ball of black fog to pieces. Even the power and spirit within was instantly blasted into nothingness. Hall Master Luo's attack had been forcibly destroyed by Xiao Yan in the most domineering manner possible. Damn it! Shock involuntarily flashed across Hall Master Luo's scarlet eyes when he saw this scene. He cursed under his breath. After which, his body abruptly turned and his feet stomped heavily on empty space. The invisible space instantly shattered and Hall Master Luo's body instantly turned into a cannonball. In the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of Xiao Yan. He raised his hand and smashed heavily at Xiao Yan. Bang! However, Hall Chief Yun's attack was once again blocked by Xiao Yan. Hall Chief Yun's large fist was firmly grabbed by Xiao Yan's giant elephant skill in front of Hall Chief Yun's disbelieving eyes. Regardless of how the latter struggled, it was to no avail. On the other hand, Xiao Yan's hand, which was grabbing Hall Chief Yun's fist, violently exerted force. Hall Chief Yun's wrist was immediately broken by this powerful force. A painful roar was emitted from Hall Chief Yun's mouth. Soon after, Xiao Yan once again pulled back with great force, pulling Hall Chief Yun's body in front of him. His right leg was lifted in a lightning-like manner and heavily smashed into Hall Chief Yun's chest with a lightning-like momentum. Bang! With a loud bang, Hall Master Yun's chest instantly caved in. Her face instantly turned red, and a pair of scarlet eyes almost popped out of her eye sockets. Before she could struggle again, the powerful force sent Hall Master Yun flying. After sending Hall Master Luo flying, Xiao Yan could not help but exhale deeply. His chest heaved uncontrollably as he lifted his gaze and looked in the direction Hall Master Luo had been sent flying. Fierce killing intent flashed in his eyes. Roar! That wretched guy! Very quickly, Hall Master Yun's furious curses came from the distant sky once again. His crazy killing intent caused a chill to rise in everyone's hearts even though they were far away. A wave of rushing wind sound appeared in the sky. It was sharp and ear-piercing, but Xiao Yan was indifferent to it. While he focused his attention, Hall Chief Yun's body, which had just been sent flying, had once again charged over. She came in a ferocious manner. Compared to earlier, she was undoubtedly even stronger, causing one to not dare underestimate her. Even though this was the case, Xiao Yan still clenched his fist at a steady pace. The firm, fierce, and overbearing strength that filled the muscles all over his body began to be maneuvered at this moment. At the same time, the little remaining Genesis Chi in his body was gathered in his right fist. Even though he had yet to unleash the powerful force, it still caused the invisible space to tremble slightly, forming circular ripples. When Hall Chief Yun once again arrived in front of Xiao Yan, his aura was like that of a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey. It appeared as though he wanted to swallow Xiao Yan in one gulp. Wave after wave of powerful Do Qi agglomerated in front of him. His entire body had transformed into the strongest weapon. In this kind of condition, any Do skill was superfluous. Only a direct collision would be able to swiftly produce the result that he wanted. At the same time, Xiao Yan's bent right arm bounced back like a spring. The speed of his punch was unimaginable. Just as his fist, which was filled with strength, was about to collide with Hall Chief Yun, Xiao Yan's mouth once again emitted a thunder-like explosive cry. Level 8 Smash. Chapter 1107. Bang! The sound of a heavy collision sounded in the sky. The moment the two collided, a terrifying energy wave swiftly spread out with the two of them at the center. Wherever it passed, the invisible space shattered an inch at a time. In the blink of an eye, the space 1,000 feet around the two of them had turned into an endless darkness. The powerful Do Qi, which was wrapped by the black fog, launched a violent attack on Xiao Yan's body. Although most of the strength was blocked by the giant elephant skill, the remaining portion also forced Xiao Yan back. Of course, compared to Xiao Yan, Hall Master Yun's aura churned within his body under the powerful hidden force of the eighth collapse. His condition had deteriorated greatly. Even the remnant souls of those people whom he had suppressed earlier had borrowed the strength of the eighth collapse to wildly struggle within his body. Damn it! Hall Master Yun's expression involuntarily changed when she sensed the rebellion of the remnant souls in her body. She cursed quietly and hurriedly maneuvered the Do Qi in her body. Only then did she manage to suppress them with great difficulty. Soon after, Xiao Yan's body once again charged forward. The strong illusory figure nimbly flashed as Xiao Yan's body rotated. The enormous illusory figure directly arrived in front of Hall Master Yun. It lifted its right leg high and carried a boundless force as it violently chopped down from above. By the time Hall Master Yun discovered it, it was already too late to avoid it. She could only use all her strength to meet it once again. There were a few consecutive intense collisions. Each of Xiao Yan's attacks was incomparably vicious and ruthless. Although Hall Master Yun still had quite a bit of energy left in her body, she could only endure with great difficulty under Xiao Yan's wild bombardment. This continued until Xiao Yan once again forced her back. In the blink of an eye, Xiao Yan had already arrived above Hall Master Yun's head and stepped heavily on her. In a moment of desperation, Hall Master Yun only had time to raise her arms to block before Xiao Yan's foot heavily stepped on her thick arms. Bang! However, the moment the two collided, Hall Master Yun's expression changed drastically. An incomparably powerful force poured out like a dragon emerging from the sea. Even she was unable to block such a powerful force. As a result, Hall Master Yun's body was blown away without any resistance the moment Xiao Yan collided with it. Even the bones in her arms, which she had used to block Xiao Yan's attack, were broken. The Do Qi that had originally gathered around her body had completely collapsed from Xiao Yan's attack. Hall Master Yun did not have the ability to face Xiao Yan in a head-on clash. Xiao Yan was able to fight Hall Master Yun to a draw when she was at her peak. Given Hall Master Yun's current cultivation, she was at most at the advanced origin transformation stage after devouring all the experts in the city. If that was the case, Xiao Yan was completely confident that he could suppress her with the strength of the giant elephant skill. Xiao Yan did not hesitate after sending Hall Master Yun flying with a single strike. Before he could stabilize his body, he appeared once again. In the blink of an eye, he had already appeared directly below Hall Master Yun, who was rapidly descending. Xiao Yan twisted his body and all the strength in his body gathered on his right leg. The moment he bent his leg, it shot out like lightning and heavily stomped on Hall Master Yun's back. Ugh! Hall Master Yun's body arched upwards in an instant. His mouth was wide open as fresh blood spurted out. There was even a blood pillar that broke out of his chest. Behind it, countless remnant souls continuously charged out like ants leaving their nest. They turned into numerous crazy vengeful spirits that flew around Hall Master Yun's body. They continuously roared at him, as though they were expressing their hatred for him. Many of them had even charged onto Hall Master Yun's body and forcefully tore off his flesh with their mouths before mercilessly swallowing it. Immediately, miserable cries rang out in the sky once again. However, the target had suddenly changed this time. Hall Master Yun, who had caused all of this, had become the target of the vengeful spirits' bites and devouring. A pitiful expression involuntarily flashed across Xiao Yan's face as he watched the scene unfold before him. Although these vengeful spirits were not necessarily good people when they were alive, they should not have been involved in this war and should not have become the sacrificial lambs of this war. Unfortunately, Hall Master Yun's appearance had caused these people to become like this. However, from the looks of it, Hall Master Yun had paid the price for the evil he had sowed. Roar! You damn things, how dare you betray me? All of you, die! Hall Master Yun, who had caught his breath, immediately turned his attention to the vengeful spirits that were constantly biting his body. After noticing that Xiao Yan did not attack again, Hall Master Yun's face was filled with rage as he twisted his body. His hands turned into claws and mercilessly swept across the heads of the vengeful spirits. In just a moment, they had all been reduced to nothingness. After Hall Master Yun had forcefully killed the last vengeful spirit, his originally huge body had once again become thin and weak. After losing the replenishment of his energy from the vengeful spirits, Hall Master Yun's aura had once again become weak. As for using the devouring Yin Fiend like before, it was clearly impossible. He really did not have that much essence blood to use. Furthermore, with the little bit of energy left in his body, it was completely insufficient for him to use it again. Cough cough cough, Hall Master Yun coughed as his condition plummeted. Even standing in the air was extremely difficult, but even with that being the case, there was still a sliver of struggle in his eyes. He had never thought that he would lose to Xiao Yan with his cultivation at returnance, and he would lose so miserably. When Xiao Yan had completely erupted with his true strength earlier, he had already understood that Xiao Yan was not someone he could deal with. His plan this time had clearly failed. If he wanted to capture Xiao Yan, he could only send out even more powerful people from the hall, or even experts at returnance. Only then would he have a chance. He had to bring this news back, a thought flashed through Hall Master Yun's head. Afterwards, his resentful gaze landed on Xiao Yan again. He forced himself to endure. I admit that I have underestimated you. I will remember what happened today. I will definitely make you pay for it all in the future. With that, Hall Master Yun used the last sliver of energy in his body to form another seal. Hee, do you think you can still leave today? Xiao Yan sneered when he heard that. He stared at Hall Master Yun coldly and sneered. I know that your spiritual strength is very powerful, but no matter how powerful your spiritual strength is, you can forget about keeping me here as long as it hasn't surpassed Class 7 with the secret techniques of my ghost hall. Hall Master Luo's body emitted a bang after she spoke. She suddenly exploded and turned into a strange black fog that swiftly spread. Do you really think you can escape? Xiao Yan coldly smiled and shook his head when he saw this. His hands swiftly formed a seal. At the same time, the heavenly flame, which had been withdrawn into his body, once again charged out of his body. Moreover, it swiftly surrounded the cluster of black fog in the sky, which had yet to scatter. The vicious heavenly flame rapidly withdrew. Very soon, Hall Master Yun's figure reappeared with a miserable howl. However, this time, he had been controlled by Xiao Yan's heavenly flame. Chapter 1108. How can this be? Hall Master Yun, who had been surrounded and controlled by the heavenly flame, had a physical body that had been destroyed in the explosion earlier. At this moment, only a wisp of her soul remained. When the heavenly flame shrank, her soul was grabbed by Xiao Yan's hand. "Humph, do you think you're the only ones who understand me? I've seen your little escape techniques countless times. The best weapon to deal with you damn things is a heavenly flame. Your strange techniques are nothing in front of a heavenly flame. You think too highly of yourself if you think you can escape." Only after Xiao Yan's words faded did Hall Master Yun realize in horror that his escape technique, which he thought was unbreakable, had already been seen through by Xiao Yan. However, what surprised him the most was that Xiao Yan, who had also exhausted his Genesis Qi, still had the ability to circulate his Genesis Qi. Why? Are you curious? As if seeing through Hall Master Yun's doubts, Xiao Yan grinned and teased, "You seem to have forgotten that I'm an alchemist. Looks like you've really forgotten that I'm an alchemist. Not only is refining medicinal pills my specialty, eating medicinal pills is also my specialty." Hall Master Yun immediately understood in his heart the moment these words were spoken. No wonder Xiao Yan was still able to maneuver his Genesis Qi at this moment. No wonder this fellow in front of him became increasingly valiant as he fought without showing the slightest sign of fatigue. It was because of the medicinal pill's strength. Unfortunately, it was already too late by the time he understood this point. Since he had already been captured by Xiao Yan, it would be easy for him to kill him. However, contrary to his expectations, Xiao Yan took out a jade bottle and sealed Hall Master Yun inside with the help of a heavenly flame. He then casually tossed the bottle into his storage ring and turned to look at the other origin transformation experts' battle. At this moment, Leng Bingshuang's group had already lost an origin transformation expert, so the heaven-piercing giant ape had quickly gone to support Kai, and Murong Xian. Leng Bingshuang and the North King both held the upper hand, so there was no need to worry. Hence, Xiao Yan's gaze shifted to the other side where the 100 Do Di were still locked in an intense battle. Compared to the battle on Leng Bingshuang's side, the situation here was much more stalemate. After all, they were all Do Di experts and there were many of them. Even though the Shao clan side held the upper hand, it was very difficult for them to end the battle in a short period of time. If there was no absolute power suppressing them, the battle would definitely drag on. An icy-cold expression immediately surfaced on Xiao Yan's face when he saw this scene. His body moved and a huge illusory figure rapidly flashed through the sky. It quickly charged into the group of people, charging left and right as it swiftly defeated the dozen or so Do Di experts from the Qin Wasteland Maze Valley. When everyone saw that Xiao Yan had actually killed over a dozen Do Di experts in the blink of an eye, a dense fear swiftly rose from the bottom of their hearts. There were even some people who immediately thought of fleeing when they saw Xiao Yan attack. On the other hand, the people from the Shao clan were surprised when they saw Xiao Yan display his invincible might. Numerous gazes filled with shock and respect landed on Xiao Yan in an orderly manner. Afterward, under Xiao Yan's lead, all the Do Di experts from the Shao clan side moved together and defeated the Qin Wasteland Maze Valley. In just a few minutes, all the Do Di experts on the other side had either died or fled. In the blink of an eye, the entire Qin Wasteland Maze Valley was completely deserted. Other than the valley chief, Qin Shua, and the other two origin transformation experts, everyone else had been finished off by Xiao Yan. In other words, from this moment on, only Qin Shua and the other two were left in the Qin Wasteland Maze Valley. However, after this battle, the Qin Wasteland Maze Valley would definitely be removed from the western region. The Shao clan would become another huge existence in the western region. Very soon, under the continuous attacks of Kai, and the others, the two origin transformation experts from the Qin Wasteland Maze Valley were defeated one after another. They lost the ability to fight and fell into the city below. At this moment, other than Yi Luotian and Qin Shua, there were only the two origin transformation experts from the Ghost Hall who were bitterly holding on. This continued until a certain moment when the two of them were finally unable to endure the attacks from Xiao Yan and the others. Just as they wanted to flee, one of them was killed by the sky-piercing ape. The other person took advantage of the self-destruction of the sky-piercing ape before he died to break out of the encirclement and quickly flee the Sand River. Just when Kai, and the others wanted to give chase, they were stopped by Xiao Yan. Soon after, their gazes landed on the last two people. When Leng Bingshuang and the Northern King had retreated a certain distance away, Xiao Yan's group of 7 origin transformation experts blocked the two of them from all directions, completely surrounding them. Yi Luotian and Qin Shua could not help but glance at each other in despair as they faced the encirclement of 7 origin transformation experts. They had never thought that the final outcome would be like this. Everything they had planned out, including the people from the Ghost Hall, should have been a perfect plan. However, they had never thought that even with the assistance of a returnance expert, they would still fail to deal with Xiao Yan. What do we do? It's basically impossible to break out of this encirclement. Looking around, Qin Shua pitifully discovered that no matter which direction or angle he looked from, the other party had no blind spots at all. Could it be that they could only be trapped here and die? Valley Master, we have no path of retreat now that things have developed to this point. Let's risk it all. As long as we break out, we'll still have a chance. A gleam of light flashed in the depths of Yi Luotian's eyes when he heard Qin Shua's words. Qin Shua clenched his teeth with great dissatisfaction when he heard this. Not only had he lost 2 origin transformation experts in today's battle, but he had also lost the entire Qin Wasteland Mysterious Valley. This battle could be said to be a complete defeat. However, it was also because of this that he felt even more dissatisfied in his heart. If he could charge out and leave this place, he would definitely take revenge for today's grudge to Xiao Yan in the future. Pfft. However, just as Qin Shua was gritting his teeth and pondering, a hand suddenly pierced into his lower abdomen. At the same time, a medicinal pill was also placed in his stomach. The moment Qin Shua raised his head, he saw Yi Luotian's savage face. He had never imagined that Yi Luotian, who was on the same boat as him, would actually attack him at such a critical moment. Valley Master, since you're going to die anyway, why not grant me my wish and use your death to keep me safe? Isn't that even better? Although Qin Shua did not understand the meaning behind Yi Luotian's words, he could clearly feel a strange plant rapidly growing in the vortex in his body. He was also extremely alarmed to discover that the Genesis Qi in his body was no longer under his control. With a thought from Yi Luotian, all the remaining Genesis Qi in the vortex in Qin Shua's body began to frantically surge. From the looks of it, it was about to self-destruct. Unfortunately, even if it was going to self-destruct, it was not Qin Shua's own will. Not good, retreat quickly. He's going to self-destruct. On the other side, Xiao Yan's group finally recovered from their shock. In an instant, the few people present did not have the time to do anything else. Their expressions changed drastically as their bodies swiftly pulled back. At the same time, the remaining Genesis Qi in their bodies poured out without any reservation. They intertwined with each other and completely sealed the space where the two of them were located. Then, boom! An earth-shaking explosion suddenly sounded. An extremely frightening energy storm also swept apart in an instant. The powerful strength violently smashed onto the energy barrier that Xiao Yan and the others had formed together. The expressions of the 7 of them turned pale at the same time. Their faces were filled with solemnness. After a couple of breaths, one could hear a ka-cha sound. The energy barrier that the 7 of them had formed together was immediately shattered. The remaining strength also sent the 7 of them flying in an instant. Soon after, before the energy storm in the sky had completely dissipated, a miserable figure covered in blood suddenly staggered out from within. Moreover, he hurriedly flew out of the Sand River shop without stopping. This person was Yi Luotian. Yi Luotian's face involuntarily revealed an extremely cold smile as he glanced at Xiao Yan's group, who had been sent flying a great distance away. Although he had paid quite a great price this time around, he had finally been saved. Without Xiao Yan's group blocking him, he could safely leave this place. At the same time, Xiao Yan and the others unwillingly wanted to chase after Yi Luotian when they saw that he was about to escape. Unfortunately, the Genesis Qi in their bodies had been completely exhausted in the energy storm earlier and they did not have the strength to chase after him. They could only watch helplessly as Yi Luotian left. God damn it! Xiao Yan cursed in his heart. He had never imagined that Yi Luotian would be so vicious and merciless as to not even spare his own partners. Just when Xiao Yan's group thought that Yi Luotian would flee, over 20 elite Dou-Di rushed over from all directions a short distance in front of Yi Luotian. They blocked Yi Luotian's path. All of these people were elite Dou-Di who had been imprisoned by Yi Luotian in the western col of Flat Mountain. Chapter 1109. With a series of painful cries, Yi Luotian was finally killed by the encirclement of the Dou-Di. This person who had single-handedly caused all of this to happen, who could be described as a great traitor, had ultimately suffered the consequences of his own actions. With Yi Luotian's death, the battle at Shahapu could be said to have come to an end. The Qin Wasteland's Maze Valley, a great overlord of the western region, was destroyed just like that. Many of the subordinate organizations under it had ended as a result. Not only had the Shao clan defeated the Qin Wasteland's Maze Valley in this battle, but they had also killed Yi Luotian. To Xiao Yan, the most important thing was that they had successfully captured the Hall Master of the Ghost Hall. Xiao Yan was certain that this person was a returnance expert. He was definitely the leader of all the ghost halls in the western region. Since Hall Master Luo had been dealt with by him, the others were even less of a problem. In other words, even the ghost hall could no longer pose any threat to him in the current western region. The battle ended. The battle ended. Other than the origin transformation expert from the Ghost Hall who had taken the opportunity to flee, all the experts at the origin transformation realm and above from the Qin Wasteland Maze Valley had been killed. The Dou-Di had even killed dozens of people. This battle result could be considered terrifying. Of course, although the Qin Wasteland's Maze Valley had been completely dealt with, the people from the Shao clan had also suffered quite a few casualties. However, overall, this was only a drop in the ocean. Afterwards, Xiao Yan and the others relied on medicinal pills to recover some of their strength. After cleaning up the battlefield, they decided to rest in the city below. Everyone present had expended quite a lot of energy in this battle. They could no longer endure any more exhaustion. What they needed the most at this moment was rest. Ignoring the others, at the very least, Xiao Yan was completely exhausted. During the battle earlier, all the nerves in his body had been stretched taut. The strength in his body had reached a high explosive level. Using it at such a high intensity for a long period of time had already exhausted him. He was already extremely lucky that he had not fainted immediately after the battle had ended. While all the members of Shao Gate were resting in the city, on the other side, a group of black-robed human figures suddenly appeared in front of the expert from the Ghost Hall, who had escaped from the tiger's mouth with great difficulty. They swiftly surrounded him. Seeing these human figures that had suddenly appeared, a pair of scarlet eyes under the black fog involuntarily revealed a deep fear. With his strength, he was actually unable to discover when these people had appeared. This also meant that the cultivations of this group of people were at least 9-star Dou-Di or above. It was even extremely likely that this was a group made up of origin transformation experts. How dare you block my path, B. As. Of them. In his current state. Cuckoo, the Ghost Hall. Who on the continent doesn't know about it? However, the people we are killing are people from the Ghost Hall. The leader of the black-robed people coldly laughed when he heard the words that carried a warning from the black fog. He immediately raised his head, revealing a pair of golden eyes under it. He stared at the people from the ghost hall on the other side and coldly said, "Kill." His voice had just sounded when the two black-robed people beside him suddenly flashed. In the blink of an eye, they had already appeared in front of the cluster of black fog. Two hands were extended from under their sleeves. A flickering golden light swiftly rotated in their palms before they heavily slammed down on the black fog in front of them. The sudden attack of the other party caused the person in the black fog to be startled. He was just about to withdraw when he was suddenly horrified to discover that a golden light formation had unknowingly formed under his feet. His body was firmly locked onto by the light formation. He was unable to dodge. While being controlled, the pair of scarlet eyes in the black fog finally noticed the special badge on the chests of the two black-robed people in front of him in an instant. In an instant, the black-robed person's heart was filled with endless fear. He could not help but involuntarily cry out. "You are the heavens." However, before the words could be completely spat out from his mouth, the two hands had already landed on his head. In the blink of an eye, he was killed on the spot. After killing the origin transformation expert from the ghost hall with a single strike, one of the black-robed people extended his hand once again. He took out a strangely shaped mask from the black fog that had yet to disperse and handed it over to the black-robed person who was the leader. "Let's go. With this ghost face, it will be easier for us to report when we return. Otherwise, the higher-ups will definitely grumble once they see that we did not take action." Putting away the mask, a helpless sigh was emitted from under the black robe. Immediately, he led the group of people and quickly disappeared from this place. On the other side, two human figures swiftly left the city one after the other in Shahapu. When they left, a few storage rings had mysteriously appeared in their hands. In the blink of an eye, half a month had already passed. Following the end of the battle at Shahapu, the Qin Wasteland Labyrinth quickly disappeared from the western region. Even the people and things related to the Qin Wasteland Labyrinth also disappeared in the blink of an eye. However, at the same time, news related to the Shao clan also quickly spread throughout the western region within half a month. The end of one generation of power also simultaneously announced the rise of another great power. The Shao clan would certainly become another colossus in the western region. Even though he had yet to do so, in reality, in the hearts of everyone in the western region, they already understood this point. Of course, as the name of the Shao Gate became even more popular, there was no doubt that the sect master of the Shao Gate, Shao Yan, had become an origin transformation expert at such a young age. Not only did he possess a great cultivation, he had also eliminated two great disasters for the western region, unknowingly saving the lives of countless people. Currently, he was the idol of many people in the western region. There were even quite a few people who treated Shao Yan as the person they chased after for the rest of their lives. As a result, they madly cultivated for him. It was also because of these various reasons that the sect masters of no less than 100 large and small factions in the western region gathered in the Shilin mountain range in just half a month. Their goal was to join the Shao Gate and personally see Shao Yan. Even when the Qin Wasteland Maze Valley was threatened with death, there were not many factions who agreed with such a scene. It was also because the leaders of these factions had all gathered in the Shilin mountain range that all the magical beasts in the Shilin mountain range became restless. If it were not for Leng Bingshuang's appearance to suppress them, the leaders of these factions would not have been able to enter the Shilin mountain range so easily no matter how powerful they were. Although there were indeed quite a few leaders of factions who had entered the Shilin mountain range, only a third of the total number of people managed to remain after passing through the various obstacles set up by Leng Bingshuang and the little fairy doctor. This caused the people from the other factions to be rather unwilling, but they could only leave in disappointment in the end. As for those people who had successfully stayed behind, they did not succeed in seeing Shao Yan as they had imagined. The little fairy doctor and Leng Bingshuang's answers were unanimous in the face of their questions. The latter was in a retreat and no one knew when he would exit his retreat. With regards to this, the leaders of those factions could only helplessly withdraw their curious thoughts. Finally, they left the Shilin mountain range after the arrangements of the little fairy doctor and the rest. This was after all the territory of the magical beasts. Once a large number of humans gathered here for a long period of time, those magical beasts would inevitably become restless even with the suppression of Leng Bingshuang. After dismissing these incessant fellows, the little fairy doctor and Leng Bingshuang quickly dismissed Lu Cheng and the rest. These fellows' injuries had already completely recovered in half a month's time. The reason why they continued to stay here was undoubtedly because of the reward that Xiao Yan had promised them. The little fairy doctor and Leng Bingshuang were naturally very clear about this point. At the beginning, when they were asked to leave, these fellows were all unwilling, afraid that Xiao Yan would get rid of them after they had outlived their usefulness. They were only willing to leave when Leng Bingshuang and the towering giant ape pressured them with their imposing manner. Of course, before leaving, the little fairy doctor had specially sworn on the lightning penalty oath. Seeing that the little fairy doctor was actually willing to swear on the lightning penalty oath for Xiao Yan, even with Leng Bingshuang's character, she could not help but feel a little surprised in her heart. At the same time, there was a trace of indescribable jealousy and unwillingness at the bottom of her heart. It was as if the person who should swear on the lightning penalty oath should be her. Following the retreat of the various factions, the Shilin mountain range temporarily regained its peace. Although the injuries that the Dodi had suffered had all been healed, as origin transformation experts, the injuries within their bodies were not as simple as they appeared on the surface. They needed a large amount of time to completely recover. Therefore, in the following period of time, everyone entered their own secluded cultivation. Only Murong Xian rested for a moment after the big battle ended before hurrying back to the clan. In the blink of an eye, another 2 months had passed. Leng Bingshuang and the rest had already exited their secluded cultivation. However, they still had not seen Xiao Yan appear. This involuntarily caused them to feel a little worried. However, at this very moment, Xiao Yan was no longer in the Shilin mountain range. On the contrary, a few days before Leng Bingshuang and the rest had exited their secluded cultivation, he had arrived in the western wastelands without anyone knowing. Xiao Yan had already awakened from his secluded cultivation a few days ago. This time, not only had he recovered from all his injuries, even his cultivation had completely stabilized at the late origin transformation realm. His personal battle prowess had also increased. Although the increase could not be seen right now, as long as the day came when he truly needed to use it, this strength would bring endless benefits to Xiao Yan. After Xiao Yan had awakened, he was in no hurry to appear. Instead, he took out the jade bottle that contained the soul of Hall Master Yun. After a long period of interrogation, this fellow finally revealed the locations of the few ghost halls in the western wastelands. Unfortunately, this fellow did not know any of the detailed information regarding Sonair. Right now, Xiao Yan had come to the western wastelands for the sake of destroying the branches of the ghost halls that had been established here. According to the information provided by Hall Master Yun, Xiao Yan very quickly arrived at a barren region called the Sand Lake Swamp. The environment of this place was just like its name. All that entered one's eyes was a vast expanse of yellow sand. However, what was different from other places was that the sand here did not form sand dunes like other places. Instead, it was as calm and quiet as the surface of a lake. A cold wind that was filled with sand blew past the sky. Xiao Yan could clearly see that the surface of the sand lake in front of him actually had a layer of ripple that was just like the surface of a lake. This sand lake is really strange. Upon seeing such a strange scene, even with Xiao Yan's experience, he could not help but exclaim in surprise. In order to satisfy the curiosity in his heart, Xiao Yan even shot out an energy pillar with his hand and shot it directly at the sand lake in front of him. However, immediately after, a strange scene appeared once again. The energy pillar that Xiao Yan shot out seemed to have hit water as it deeply sank into the sand lake. It even stirred up a wave that was completely formed from sand. Upon seeing this scene, Xiao Yan's heart was even more shocked by the strangeness of this sand lake. It was no wonder that the ghost hall would choose to set up camp in such a place. With such a strange geographical environment, it was likely that no one would be willing to come here. Hence, this place had become the best place for them to set up camp. After sweeping across the surface of the sand lake for a few minutes, the sight in front of Xiao Yan gradually darkened. Immediately after, a towering mountain-like pitch-black building appeared in front of Xiao Yan. This was also the location of the first ghost hall that Hall Master Yun had given him. Without any hesitation, Xiao Yan forcefully broke the special restriction at the entrance in a few moves. Subsequently, he charged into the hall. At the same time that he alarmed all the experts in the hall, he also killed all the people from the ghost hall that he could see in the shortest amount of time. Even those who he could not see, but could sense with his spiritual strength, were all killed by him. Faced with Xiao Yan's attack, these so-called experts from the ghost hall could not even block a single punch from him. In a short few minutes, all the experts from the ghost hall within the large hall had been killed by Xiao Yan. Even the pitch-black magnificent building had been forcefully razed to the ground by Xiao Yan with a single punch. In the end, the ruins of the large hall that had lost all its support sank into the sand lake. After that, it was the other two ghost halls in the other two areas. In the next few days, Xiao Yan had practically walked through the entire western wastelands. The other two halls had also been completely destroyed by Xiao Yan using the same method. In this way, all the remaining ghost hall forces in the western wastelands had been completely cleaned up by Xiao Yan. After settling these matters, Xiao Yan naturally returned to the Shilin mountain range. However, it was also at this moment that Murong Xian, who had originally left earlier, suddenly returned and once again arrived at the Shilin mountain range. This time, his target was Leng Bingshuang. Chapter 11:10. In the Shilin mountain range, when Leng Bingshuang found out the reason and purpose of Murong Xian's visit, an ice-cold murderous intent immediately surfaced on her beautiful face. Her two fair, jade-like hands involuntarily clenched tightly. In her heart, a fury that had been suppressed for many years once again rose. They actually have the face to come here. Standing on top of the cliff, Leng Bingshuang's beautiful eyes stared intently at the empty space in front of her. The aura in her body churned, and even the energy between heaven and earth began to riot uncontrollably. The mountain peak she stood on trembled slightly, and an extremely terrifying aura and pressure had invisibly enveloped the entire Shilin mountain range. This also caused countless magical beasts in the forest to curl up on the ground in extreme fear at this moment. Their mouths emitted low whimpers, indicating the fear in their hearts. At this very moment, even Tianing and the others were intimidated by this terrifying pressure. Their bodies trembled as they knelt on a distant mountain peak, their hearts filled with endless fear. Even Murong Xian, who had a very good relationship with Leng Bingshuang, turned pale in the face of Leng Bingshuang's pressure. His body involuntarily half-knelt on the ground as he revealed a respectful expression to Leng Bingshuang. Meanwhile, outside the Shilin mountain range, Xiao Yan had rushed over from the western wilderness. However, as soon as he arrived, he immediately sensed something strange in the Shilin mountain range. This is Leng Bingshuang. Did something happen? Xiao Yan's expression immediately changed drastically when he sensed the anger that filled the qi. Could it be that someone had come to the Shilin mountain range to create trouble during these few days that he had been away? You're courting death. With this thought, killing intent abruptly erupted in Xiao Yan's heart. With a low roar, the Genesis qi in his body frantically circulated. The Sky Extinction Step and Wing Elephant art were instantly activated to the limit. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared from the outskirts of the Shilin mountain range. "Milord, they have come to the western region this time with the intention of bringing you back to the clan. It seems that they hope that you can acknowledge your roots and return to the clan instead of continuing to wander outside. Father and I have discussed this and we both believe that rather than staying in this desolate western region, it is better for you to return to the clan. After all, that is your true home." After a long while, when Leng Bingshuang gradually restrained her emotions, Murong Xian cautiously opened his mouth. However, the instant the words left his mouth, Leng Bingshuang's extremely cold gaze instantly landed on his body. Humph, you're really stupid. What real home? Have you forgotten how they mercilessly drove us out of the clan and killed so many of our clansmen? Now you're actually advising me to go back. You've really disappointed me. A bitter expression involuntarily appeared on Murong Xian's face. He of course knew that Leng Bingshuang would not agree to return no matter what, and he certainly did not want to influence Leng Bingshuang's choice. However, he had no choice but to do so. Those people were threatening him with the lives of their clan. They would either bring Leng Bingshuang to them or erase their entire clan from the history of the continent. Of course, other than today, the last time he came to the Shilin mountain range was also for the same purpose. However, at that time, he was unable to speak because of the Shao Gate and the Qin Desolate Maze Valley. However, it was different this time. Those people had already given the order that if they were unable to bring Leng Bingshuang back, they would start a massacre in the clan. As a last resort, Murong Xian had rushed to the Shilin mountain range in an attempt to invite Leng Bingshuang back. Unfortunately, he had already expected Leng Bingshuang's unruly attitude. Before he left, his father had already told him that if Leng Bingshuang was unwilling, he should not force her. Furthermore, he could not use the clan's crisis as an excuse to tie her up. Hence, after hearing Leng Bingshuang's reply, Murong Xian smiled bitterly. He bowed to Leng Bingshuang and turned around to leave. As the clan's young master, he must stay with the clan no matter what when the clan was facing such a crisis. The only thing that made him feel fortunate was that Murong Xianxian was not in the clan. Otherwise, if the latter was also involved, he would not be satisfied even if he were to die. However, just as Murong Xian was about to turn around and leave, a sharp rushing wind sound was heard. In an instant, a ghost-like human figure suddenly appeared in front of him. A hand claw that was filled with power almost landed on his throat. Fortunately, this person had recognized the former's identity the moment he appeared. Otherwise, Murong Xian would have died here today even before he could return to the clan. Huff! In an instant, Murong Xian's clothes were completely drenched in cold sweat. When he raised his head with a heart filled with fear, he only saw a young face that was covered in sweat. At this moment, the young man was looking at him with a face that did not know whether to laugh or cry. Murong Xian's mouth was still heavily panting. His face was filled with joy and helplessness. Xiao Yan did not expect that the fierce battle that he had imagined would actually appear in such an awkward manner in front of him. Withdrawing his hand, Xiao Yan revealed an awkward smile. At the same time, the aura of death that enveloped Murong Xian's heart also quietly dissipated at this moment. In that instant just now, he did not even sense a trace of Xiao Yan's aura. He did not even know when Xiao Yan had appeared in front of him. The other party's speed had actually reached such a level. At the same time, Leng Bingshuang's gaze also fell on Xiao Yan. Seeing that the latter had actually returned from outside, Leng Bingshuang's eyes were filled with shock. At the same time, the anger in her heart also unknowingly calmed down. This point was also clearly noticed by Xiao Yan, who was paying attention to the former's emotions. He immediately turned his head slightly and frowned at Leng Bingshuang. He asked curiously, "What's wrong? Did something happen?" Hearing this, Leng Bingshuang's pair of beautiful eyes flashed slightly. However, she avoided Xiao Yan's gaze and quickly left the place. Only Xiao Yan and Murong Xian were left at the original spot. Since Leng Bingshuang did not say anything, Xiao Yan could only turn his gaze back to the person in front of him. When the latter saw this, his expression could not help but be slightly startled. Looking at Xiao Yan's curious eyes, a strange feeling involuntarily rose in Murong Xian's heart. Perhaps, the Xiao Yan in front of him could help him. Although this feeling came abruptly without any warning or reason, at this point, Leng Bingshuang's matter was already related to the rise and fall of their entire clan. How could he care so much? After which, he told Xiao Yan the purpose of his trip. However, when Murong Xian spat out the first sentence, the expression on Xiao Yan's face suddenly froze. "You mean, the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe?" Chapter 11:11. A long while later, Murongxian finally told Xiao Yan the reason why he had come to the Shilin mountain range this time around. During this entire process, Xiao Yan's expression was solemn. This was especially the case toward the end when his face even revealed a dark and solemn expression. The Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe is one of the supreme overlords of the magical beast world. Why would they look for her? After listening to Murongxian's narration, Xiao Yan pondered for a long while before opening his mouth to speak. Compared to Murongxian's narration, Xiao Yan was more curious as to why they would be interested in Lengbing Shuang, a woman who lived far away in the western region. When Xiao Yan's words came out, Murongxian's expression immediately froze. In the blink of an eye, he regained his senses. After thinking about it carefully, Xiao Yan's question was not strange at all. If there was nothing special about Lengbing Shuang, the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe would not have looked for her. After hesitating for a long while, Murongxian raised his eyes again and stared at Xiao Yan in front of him. He slowly said, "Mr. Xiao Yan, I'm afraid that you will be shocked when you hear the first sentence I'm about to say." Xiao Yan narrowed his eyes. His heart was filled with doubt. At the same time, he became even more curious about Lengbing Shuang's true identity. In fact, Lengbing Shuang is also a member of the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe. Buzz. Murongxian's words were like an invisible bomb that instantly exploded in Xiao Yan's mind. His words were astonishing, and a shocking storm raged wildly in Xiao Yan's mind. After a long while, Xiao Yan raised his head with an expression of disbelief. His gaze was firmly fixed on Murongxian, as if he was afraid that he had misheard. When he saw Murongxian nod his head in affirmation, his entire body suddenly froze, as if he had turned into a statue in an instant. Xiao Yan had never thought that Lengbing Shuang, who lived in the barren western region, would be a member of the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe. However, since that was the case, how could she possibly stay here? According to Xiao Yan's knowledge, the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe had always had strict rules. It was very rare for the tribe members to leave the tribe. Even if they died, most of the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe members had to die in the tribe. Even if they died in the outside world, they had to bring their corpses back. However, why was Lengbing Shuang, a member of the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe, living in the barren western region of the continent? Seeing Xiao Yan's surprised and suspicious expression, Murongxian could only helplessly sigh. He raised his head and asked Xiao Yan, "What's the matter? I wonder if Mr. Xiao Yan has heard of the Ice Phoenix?" Hearing this, Xiao Yan was slightly startled. In the end, he shook his head awkwardly. Even with his experience, he had never heard of the Ice Phoenix. Seeing this, Murongxian smiled bitterly and nodded. Lengbing Shuang is from the Ice Phoenix tribe. Lengbing Shuang belongs to the Ice Phoenix clan. Back then, the Ice Phoenix was one of the two great clans of the Heaven Demon Phoenix clan. Then, Murongxian told Xiao Yan about the Ice Phoenix tribe and Lengbing Shuang's exact identity. It turned out that in the ancient times, there were two tribes in the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe. One of them was the Fire Phoenix tribe, which was the current Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe. The other was the Ice Phoenix tribe. Although the two tribes were both Heaven Demon Phoenixes, the relationship between the two tribes was not friendly. The continuous war caused the two tribes to completely break apart. After countless years, the Ice Phoenix tribe was finally defeated. Less than 10 people from the originally huge tribe were killed in the end. Even the subordinate tribes behind them were implicated and were almost exterminated. In the end, if the remaining experts of the Ice Phoenix tribe did not save them at the cost of their lives, the subordinate tribes behind them would have been completely exterminated. This subordinate tribe was Murongxian's tribe, the Cyan Phoenix tribe. Under the lead of the few remaining experts of the Ice Phoenix tribe, the Cyan Phoenix tribe fled the central region and came to the desolate western region to settle down. After countless years, only Lengbing Shuang was left of the original Ice Phoenix tribe. As for the Cyan Phoenix tribe, although the tribe still existed, its foundation and strength were no longer as strong as before. They could only submit themselves to the depths of the western wastelands and continue to guard the place where the experts of the Ice Phoenix tribe had fallen. Now, the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe had once again descended and used the fate of the Cyan Phoenix tribe as a bargaining chip to threaten them. They demanded that they must bring Leng Bingshuang back and leave with them. However, Murong Xian was also clear about Leng Bingshuang's character. For the fate of the entire tribe, he had no choice but to come here. However, this outcome did not seem to be important. Huff, after exhaling a long breath, Xiao Yan nodded with a calm expression. He extended his hand and gently patted Murong Xian's shoulder. He smiled and said, "Don't worry, she will go, right?" As his voice fell, Xiao Yan's gaze turned and looked at the void not far away from them. When Xiao Yan looked over, the void that was originally empty suddenly distorted slightly. Then, the graceful figure of Leng Bingshuang appeared in front of them again. She glanced at Xiao Yan, then her gaze fell on Murong Xian. She frowned and said in a deep voice, "Why didn't you say such a big thing just now?" Hearing this, Murong Xian's face suddenly revealed an embarrassed expression. After a long while, he said helplessly, "It was my father. He only asked me to ask if you are willing to go back. If you are not willing, then you must not be forced to go back for any reason. He said that the tribe is small, and your choice is the most important." Ridiculous. What do you mean the tribe is small? Do you want me to feel guilty for the rest of my life? And those guys, they are a group of despicable people. In order to achieve their goals, they actually use such despicable means. How despicable. Now, you and I will go to the Western Wasteland region. This king wants to see how arrogant and despotic they are. After speaking, Leng Bingshuang was about to move, but she saw Xiao Yan's figure move and follow closely beside her. "What are you doing?" Leng Bingshuang frowned and said. Someone wants to take my woman away. Then I have to go and meet them personally." In response, Xiao Yan curled his lips and smiled. Just as Leng Bingshuang was about to flare up, under the latter's stunned gaze, he snatched her jade-like hand and held it in his palm. He even stared at her with a domineering expression. In an instant, for some reason, the anger that should have risen in Leng Bingshuang's heart was extinguished the moment it was grabbed by Xiao Yan's large hand. She did not even dare to look directly at Xiao Yan's eyes. Behind the two of them, Murong Xian was also extremely shocked as he looked at the two people in front of him. This was especially so when he saw the crimson redness involuntarily appear on Leng Bingshuang's pretty face. His heart immediately seemed to have understood something. He opened his mouth but was speechless. He could only quietly follow behind the two of them. The group swiftly left the Shilin mountain range and swiftly headed towards the Western Wasteland region. Tianing and the rest exchanged glances with each other when they saw Xiao Yan and Leng Bingshuang leave. They shrugged their shoulders and left one after another. At the same time, on another mountain peak, the white-dressed little fairy doctor was also watching Xiao Yan and Leng Bingshuang leave with a complicated expression. Chapter 11-12. 2 days later, Xiao Yan's group, led by Murong Xian, arrived at the depths of the Western Wilderness region. They arrived outside a city called Blue Eagle City. When Xiao Yan heard the words Blue Eagle City, his mind immediately recalled the scene when Murong Xianxian had been taken away back then. That middle-aged man had clearly told him about the Blue Eagle City before he left. It was just that it was unexpected that the middle-aged man's casual words back then had actually come true. Outside Blue Eagle City, Xiao Yan and the other two hovered in the air and looked into the distance. Although they were outside the city, they could clearly see that in the depths of Blue Eagle City, there were 3 gigantic birds circling in the sky above a splendid building. Although these gigantic birds were not heaven demon phoenixes, Xiao Yan could tell that these magical beasts were not ordinary magical beasts. Furthermore, just from the pressure that enveloped the entire Blue Eagle City, these 3 magical beasts were probably of an extremely high rank. These three fellows are from a subsidiary tribe of the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe. They are called goshawks. During the war between the two tribes, they did not even have the right to participate in it. They always followed behind my tribe. Who would have thought that they would have developed to this stage now? When he finished speaking, Murong Xian could not help but reveal an unresigned expression. Thinking back, his Qingluan tribe and its glory were extremely important even in the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe. Who would have thought that they would be suppressed by these bastards now? Let's go and meet them. In response, Xiao Yan could only sigh softly in his heart. He then gently waved his hand, indicating for Murong Xian to lead the way. Xiao Yan held Leng Bingshuang's hand, who had an unnatural expression. The three of them quickly entered the city and flew towards the city center. Very quickly, the three figures arrived at the center of the city. When they raised their heads, they saw the three gigantic beasts circling in the sky. Huge shadows descended from the sky and enveloped the entire city. It was like a thick layer of dark clouds. Combined with the heavy pressure, one could not help but feel an extremely heavy atmosphere. This is the Goshawk Castle. The clansmen of my clan usually live here. Other than some necessary clan properties and going out to gain experience, many people live and cultivate here since they were young. Of course, we also have our own space, so what we know and learn won't be any less than the people in the outside world. Murong Xian wore a smile as he spoke to the surprised Xiao Yan. As for Leng Bingshuang, she indifferently glanced at the huge ancient castle below. A nostalgic look flashed across the depths of her beautiful eyes. After so many years, she had finally returned to this place. Xiao Yan's heart did not feel anything strange when he first saw this ancient castle outside the city earlier. It was merely a little more majestic than the buildings he had seen in the past. However, when he arrived at the top of the Goshawk Castle at this moment, he was shocked to realize that what he had seen earlier was merely the tip of the iceberg of this ancient castle. The huge ancient castle was like a strange city that could not be seen inside. As far as the eye could see, there were no main doors or entrances. The only thing that could lead to the inside was the door-like windows that were set up at the top of the ancient castle. Only from there could one reach the outside of the ancient castle. It was the first time that Xiao Yan had seen such a strange building. Mr. Xiao Yan, there is no need to be surprised. My Cyan Phoenix tribe has always been good at flying. Those structures that are suitable for humans do not exist for us. However, like this, on one hand, it can ensure the safety of our tribe members, and it can also be used for our tribe, saving us some unnecessary trouble. Only when he heard this did Xiao Yan understand. At the same time, he felt some admiration for this tribe. Even though he had already transformed into a human, they were still able to follow their own wishes and set up their own rules without being affected by the majority. Such an unruly tribe was really surprising. At the same time, in the guest hall of the Goshawk Castle, a few middle-aged men were smiling as they chatted with the people sitting opposite them. Their words were rather polite, but there was a faint smell of gunpowder in the air. Patriarch Murong, young master, has already left for almost 5 days. Why hasn't he returned yet? Could it be that he couldn't bring anyone back, so he ran away himself? On the left side of the hall, a yellow-robed old man at the very front raised his head and stared at the middle-aged man on the main seat as he spoke with a slightly heavy tone. The middle-aged man was the current patriarch of the Cyan Phoenix clan, Murong Sun. The white-haired young man to the side immediately frowned when those words were spoken. A look of displeasure quickly flitted across his icy blue eyes. At the same time, the middle-aged man on the main seat also noticed the change in the young man's expression. His eyes spun as he immediately said, "Elder Xian, don't worry. Please don't be in such a hurry, Elder Tsang Xian. Leng Bingshuang's location is quite a distance away from my castle. Even though Xian has reached the origin transformation stage, he will still need some time to reach her. Therefore, I hope that the two of you can wait patiently for a little while longer. Since clan leader Murong has said so, we will wait for a while longer. However, I must remind clan leader Murong that Leng Bingshuang is a member of the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe. The reason why we have come here is because our tribe values this matter greatly. They have ordered me to bring Leng Bingshuang back to acknowledge her ancestors. Therefore, if young clan leader is unable to bring her back, I'm afraid that you will have to bear the consequences. Hearing the words spat out from the mouth of the middle-aged man on the head seat, the old man sitting below the stage hesitated for a moment before speaking with a threatening tone. Of course. Since Xian is personally handling this matter, it will definitely be handled properly. Don't worry, Elder Tsang Xian. However, there's still something I don't understand. I hope Elder Tsang Xian can tell me. Why did the Heaven Demon Phoenix clan suddenly request for Leng Bingshuang to return to acknowledge her ancestors? Murong Sun's question caused old Tsang Xian's expression to instantly change. Dissatisfaction immediately emerged on his face. However, before he could speak, the white-haired young man next to him suddenly sneered and said, "That's right. It seems that the Cyan Phoenix clan has left the Heaven Demon Phoenix clan for too long. You've actually forgotten about this. Could it be that you don't know that Leng Bingshuang's ancestor had an expert with an extreme Yin body? Although her ancestor's cultivation talent wasn't outstanding, it said that after they successfully controlled the extreme Yin body through the clan's secret technique, they became one of the few experts in the Ice Phoenix clan. However, for some unknown reason, the extreme Yin body affected the next generation, causing all of the direct descendants of her branch to possess the extreme Yin body. Looking at the time, the extreme Yin body hidden in Leng Bingshuang's body should be nearing maturity. The reason why we're bringing her back to the clan this time is to help her resolve her extreme Yin body. You should understand now, right?" After the white-haired young man spoke those words, Murong Sun's expression immediately changed. Naturally, he knew about the extreme Yin body. He also knew about the dangers within. The extreme Yin body was indeed an extremely powerful special body in this world. However, everyone in this world knew that it was a strange body that harmed others and oneself. If there was any way to help Leng Bingshuang resolve the problem of her body, then of course, he would be extremely happy. However, just as Murong Sun was pondering with a heart full of suspicion, three figures suddenly arrived outside the guest hall. It was Xiao Yan and the other two. Chapter 11-13. The sudden arrival of Xiao Yan and the other two immediately drew the gazes of both Murong Sun and Tsang Xian. When Murong Sun saw Murong Xian bring Leng Bingshuang here, shock first emerged in his eyes, then he breathed a sigh of relief inside. If what the white-haired young man said was true, then perhaps Leng Bingshuang's arrival could not only resolve the crisis for his Azure Phoenix clan, it could also help her remove the hidden danger in her body. If that was the case, this deal was not a loss. While Murong Sun was quietly relaxing in his heart, the gazes of Tsang Xian and the others below the stage had similarly landed on Xiao Yan's group. Seeing that Murong Xian had returned and had even brought someone back, their hearts were naturally filled with joy. A couple of gazes swiftly observed Leng Bingshuang's lovely body beside Murong Xian. Their brows were immediately knit together when they noticed the black-robed, young man who was similarly standing beside her. They could clearly sense the enmity that this black-robed, young man's eyes revealed when he looked at them. When the three of them stepped into this place, Xiao Yan had already heard everything the white-haired young man said. Others did not know, but Xiao Yan knew very well that if he wanted to resolve the problem of Leng Bingshuang's extreme Yin body, he had to have intercourse with her. No matter if it was her body or her soul, they had to completely merge with her. In other words, unless Leng Bingshuang married someone, her extreme Yin body could not be resolved. But right now, Leng Bingshuang was one of his people, yet the young man said such clear words in front of him. How could he possibly not be moved? This is a human. Why did a human enter this place? Is the Goshawk Castle a human market? Why aren't you kicking him out? Ignoring the enmity in Xiao Yan's eyes, Tsang Xian frowned and opened his mouth in a deep voice. However, the two guards from the Murong clan standing in front of the door to the guest hall did not move in the slightest. This caused Zhang Xian's face to instantly become embarrassed. His old face twitched slightly. After which, his dissatisfied gaze landed on Murong Sun. The latter involuntarily knit his brows together when he saw this. Just as he was about to open his mouth, another middle-aged man among the few Murong clan elders seated on the right side of the stage suddenly stood up. His gaze, which was filled with surprise, was thrown onto Xiao Yan's body. You're Xiao Yan. As the words were spat out from this middle-aged man's mouth, the gazes of everyone present once again landed on him. Numerous gazes swept back and forth between the middle-aged man and Xiao Yan. It was very difficult to imagine that these two people, who did not appear to have met each other no matter how one looked at it, actually knew each other. Hearing the middle-aged man's words, Xiao Yan's gaze immediately landed on him as well. His expression was first taken aback, then he immediately thought of a person who looked similar to the middle-aged man. A warm smile appeared on his face, and he said with a clear voice, "Senior Murong, we meet again." This Murong was the fourth uncle who took Murong Qianxian away from Xiao Yan, Murong Hao. It really is you. Who would have thought, who would have thought? When we meet again, the half-step emperor kid from back then has already become an origin transformation expert. Kid, your rate of growth is truly shocking. Xiao Yan could not help but smile awkwardly when he heard that. He did not say anything more on the topic. On the other hand, the people from Zhangxian immediately raised their eyebrows when they heard Xiao Yan's name. Even they, as passers-by, had heard of this name that had recently become extremely famous in the western region. He had actually forcefully killed a returnance expert with his cultivation at the origin transformation realm. Even they were extremely shocked by such a battle achievement. However, when they saw that this legendary Xiao Yan was actually just a young man with such a young appearance, a surprise involuntarily flashed across the eyes of that white-haired young man despite his character. All right. Since you know each other, I won't interfere. However, since you've come, Leng Bingshuang, that means you're willing to return with us. The elders of the clan have already been waiting for a long time. Let's not waste any more words. We'll immediately set off for the central region. He stood up as he spoke. The white-haired young man by his side also stood up. His gaze, which had landed on Xiao Yan's body, shifted to Leng Bingshuang's beautiful face. His gaze repeatedly swept over the latter's proud lovely body. A greedy expression flashed deep within his eyes. Of course we'll set off. However, I'm afraid that you'll be the only ones returning. At this moment, the calm-faced Xiao Yan suddenly stood up. His eyes swept over the white-haired young man before looking at Zhang Xian, who was leading the group, and spoke in a faint voice. What did you say? The expressions on the faces of Zhang Xian and the white-haired young man beside him immediately changed when Xiao Yan's words sounded. Two gazes that were filled with displeasure landed on Xiao Yan's body at the same time. At the same time, an invisible aura and pressure spread out from the air. It immediately descended on Xiao Yan's head. The heavy pressure caused Xiao Yan's body to bend down in an instant. Half of his knees had nearly landed on the ground. Surprise involuntarily flashed across Zhang Xian's eyes when he saw that Xiao Yan was actually able to block his aura. He was just about to increase the pressure when another aura that was not inferior to his was suddenly unleashed from behind him. It easily resolved his aura and pressure. Even the aura that was suppressing Xiao Yan's body was also removed. Elder Zhang Xian, Xiao Yan is our guest. We cannot allow our guest to be bullied in our territory. Murong Sun stood up from the main seat and indifferently spoke. Zhang Xian's sinister eyes slowly narrowed. He turned his head and shot a glance at Murong Sun, then returned his gaze to Xiao Yan. With an icy tone, he said, "You heard what this brat said just now. You don't want us to take Leng Bingshuang away?" That depends on whether you have the qualifications to say such words. Zhang Xian's gaze then looked back at Leng Bingshuang. He said with a deep voice, Leng Bingshuang, since you've come today, you must return with us. No. The reason I've come here is to tell you that I will absolutely not return to that place. Even if I do, I will be going there to take back what belongs to us. Zhang Xian tightly furrowed his brows. He didn't expect Leng Bingshuang to still be unwilling to return with them even with the lives of the Azure Phoenix clan as a threat. Helpless, he could only cast his gaze towards Murong Sun again. Murong Sun, don't you want to say something? After all, we're doing this for her own good. However, if she doesn't appreciate it, then she will have to bear the consequences herself. Murong Sun felt extremely helpless in his heart when he heard those words. He hesitated for a moment before finally opening his mouth. Unfortunately, before the words in his mouth could be completely spat out, they were interrupted by Xiao Yan. Leng Bingshuang, you should know that the extreme mean body, I'm sorry. If it's about the extreme mean body, then there's no need for you to worry. Chapter 11:14. The moment the words left Xiao Yan's mouth in the guest hall, the gazes of everyone present from both parties instantly landed on him in an orderly manner. Their gazes contained both surprise and bewilderment. On the other hand, Leng Bingshuang, who stood next to Xiao Yan, couldn't help but feel her face burn up when she heard Xiao Yan's words. As the person involved, she naturally knew what Xiao Yan was referring to. However, thinking back to it now, there was no longer any scarlet-red fury in her eyes. Instead, they were pink. I wonder what Mr. Xiao Yan means by that. This matter is of great importance to my clan, so I hope you won't boast so carelessly. On the main seat, Murong Sun was also looking at Xiao Yan with a serious expression. He knew very well the weight of Xiao Yan's words. If he wasn't careful, it would likely cause the two sides to immediately clash. So, he had to be careful. I've heard of you before. Brat, this old man has heard of you. It's only because you have some foundation that you can make a name for yourself in this barren land. However, this old man still advises you to know your own limits. The extreme mean body is a strange physique that has troubled countless experts of the entire continent. Many top experts of the continent have studied it for countless years without any progress. Now, you actually say that we don't need to worry about it. What, do you have a solution? Zhang Xian's sinister eyes narrowed into a straight line as he stared at Xiao Yan. The formless pressure once again spread outwards. Compared to before, the current Murong Sun didn't do anything to stop it. Although Zhang Xian wasn't a righteous person, his words were not exaggerated in the slightest. The extreme mean body was special to begin with. According to legends, it was a strange constitution on par with the woeful poison body. In this world, there was almost no one who could control it. Even if they could forcefully suppress it, it would still cause an even greater disaster due to the backlash of the constitution. Therefore, Murong Sun would not allow any mistakes to occur in this matter. Even if the Xiao Yan in front of him was not an ordinary person, it was just as Zhang Xian had said. He was, after all, merely a person from this remote western region. Although his training talent was not bad, he was merely ordinary when placed in the entire continent. Without Murong Sun blocking him, Xiao Yan alone faced Zhang Xian's frightening aura and pressure that he could not match. His firm body only endured for a short few seconds before it was forcefully pressed down by the powerful pressure. His body emitted a bang as it knelt on the ground. This time around, even the ground under his body cracked because of this powerful aura and pressure. An inch-deep pit was smashed into the ground. The sudden change caused Leng Bingshuang's and Murong Xian's expressions to change. Although Leng Bingshuang wanted to help Xiao Yan, who was half kneeling on the ground, up, facing Zhang Xian's pressure, how could the two of them fight back with their strength? Immediately, their faces sank. Leng Bingshuang glared with her extremely cold eyes. Her gaze instantly swept past Zhang Xian's body, and the chilliness that shot over made Zhang Xian's heart slightly chill. Then, Leng Bingshuang spoke to Murong Sun, and coldly sneered. Murong Sun, everything he said is true. The problem of the extreme Yin body has been solved. There won't be any problems in the future. What? It's really solved? Hearing Leng Bingshuang admit it herself, Murong Sun's heart was also filled with shock. Naturally, he wouldn't have any doubts about the former's words. However, what he didn't expect was what method they used to solve the extreme Yin body that no one could solve. Was there truly a way to solve such a horrifying constitution? Why aren't you saving him? Just as Murong Sun was feeling shocked by Leng Bingshuang's words, the latter suddenly shouted, causing Murong Sun to instantly come back to his senses. With a face full of cold sweat, he quickly made his move, removing Zhang Xian's pressure in one go. He didn't pay attention to Zhang Xian's extremely ugly expression, and instead, suspiciously looked back and forth between Leng Bingshuang and Xiao Yan, who was breathing roughly. With Leng Bingshuang's prideful nature, when had she ever cared so much about a person? She even furiously roared at him for Xiao Yan. Ever since he met Leng Bingshuang, it was the second time he saw such a scene. Almost at the same time, in Zhang Xian's group, the white-haired young man's icy blue eyes kept on looking back and forth between Xiao Yan and Leng Bingshuang after Xiao Yan's words. His heart was filled with bewilderment. It wasn't until Leng Bingshuang personally confirmed it for Xiao Yan, and even revealed the crimson color that only a little girl would have on her face, that he immediately understood how Leng Bingshuang's extreme Yin body was solved. This adulterous couple, they truly deserve to die. They actually ruined my plan just like that. When the white-haired young man fully understood this point, the rage in his heart immediately could not be suppressed. His standing body trembled slightly uncontrollably, the muscles on his face twitched, and a pair of ice-blue eyes surged with killing intent. Although their goal in coming to the western region was indeed to bring Leng Bingshuang back to the clan and solve the hidden danger of her extreme Yin body, their final goal was to transfer the extreme Yin body into his body through a special secret method, creating a fake extreme Yin body. In addition to his own ice attribute Genesis Chi, once the two were combined, his cultivation speed would definitely rise to a whole new level, and his future would be filled with limitless possibilities. However, the prerequisite for this was that Leng Bingshuang's extreme Yin body had not fully matured, and her body had to be a virgin. He had waited for this day for a very long time. He never imagined that all his efforts would be in vain in the end. Thinking back, when he was still young, the elders of the white-haired young man had once mentioned Leng Bingshuang to him. The reason why they did not bring Leng Bingshuang back early was because they hoped to suppress Leng Bingshuang's cultivation speed, allowing the young man to completely suppress the extreme Yin body's rampage when he absorbed it. In this way, the process of the young man fusing with it would naturally be much easier. According to their estimates, the extreme Yin body should not have fully matured by now. If they brought Leng Bingshuang back at this time, their plan would have been absolutely foolproof. Unfortunately, plans could never keep up with changes. Who could have imagined that Leng Bingshuang would forcefully consume the extreme Arctic ice soul when the Shilin mountain range was in danger, causing the extreme Yin body to erupt prematurely? It was also because of this that she had such a relationship with Xiao Yan. The many years of waiting of this young man had all turned into bubbles in a few words. Chapter 11:15. Since the matter has been resolved, Elder Zhang Xian, I believe you all should be able to return, right? Knowing that the extreme Yin body had been completely resolved, the rock that had been hanging in Murong Sun's heart finally fell to the ground. He quickly plastered a smile on his face as he looked towards Zhang Xian and the others. With a wave of his sleeve, he made an inviting gesture as he quietly waited for them to leave. Humph! Zhang Xian coldly snorted in displeasure when he heard this, and was about to leave with the people behind him. However, the instant he moved, the white-haired young man beside him suddenly made a move. He coldly snorted, and the instant he raised his head, his gaze landed on Leng Bingshuang as he said in a deep voice, "Even so, Leng Bingshuang, you are still a member of my Heaven Demon Phoenix clan. You must follow the rules of my Heaven Demon Phoenix clan. So, no matter what, I must bring you back today." The instant his words left his mouth, the white-haired young man's foot fiercely stomped on the ground. A powerful force instantly burst forth, and a basin-sized pit was immediately created. At the same time, the white-haired young man's figure instantly disappeared. However, he had already arrived in front of Leng Bingshuang in the blink of an eye, and grabbed towards her shoulder. Scram! The white-haired young man's sudden attack caught Leng Bingshuang off guard for a moment. However, Xiao Yan, who had been paying attention to her, abruptly jerked the instant the white-haired young man arrived. He instantly activated the giant elephant art, and the Genesis Qi in the vortex in his body rapidly circulated. In a flash, he appeared in front of Leng Bingshuang like a ghost. His hand clenched into a fist, and under the condensation of Genesis Qi and force, he viciously met the white-haired young man's palm. Humph, I knew you would attack. The white-haired young man seemed to have expected this. In the blink of an eye, powerful force instantly multiplied in the palm that he had extended forward. The instant it collided with Xiao Yan's fist, it viciously sent Xiao Yan flying with an unstoppable force. As an advanced origin transformation expert, Xiao Yan had been mercilessly sent flying by a single punch from the white-haired young man. Faced with someone of similar age, Xiao Yan's attack was actually unable to withstand a single blow. How is this possible? To the side, Murong Xian blankly stared at Xiao Yan as he was sent flying. Disbelief filled his face as he glanced between the two. Soon after, an extremely terrifying presence radiated from the white-haired young man's body. Only then did Murong Xian and Leng Bingshuang understand why the white-haired young man could send Xiao Yan flying with a single palm strike. His cultivation had already reached the returnance realm, and if they were not mistaken, he was probably a powerful late returnance expert. The difference of an entire level of cultivation was not something that could be made up for with battle prowess. Even though Xiao Yan had defeated a returnance expert before, that was only an early returnance expert in the end. However, it was completely different this time. Even if Xiao Yan used his full strength, he would not be the opponent of a late returnance expert. However, Leng Bingshuang was in no mood to pay attention to the young man's cultivation. All she could think about right now was Xiao Yan's current situation. Tens of seconds later, Xiao Yan, who had been sent flying by a punch from the white-haired young man, once again stepped into the guest hall from outside. Dust permeated the air. As his footsteps moved forward, an invisible wind swept away the dust fog. Xiao Yan, are you all right? Seeing Xiao Yan step forward, Leng Bingshuang's pretty face immediately carried an anxious expression as she stepped forward to inquire. Xiao Yan merely grinned at her in response, revealing a row of teeth that were dyed with fresh blood. After which, his gaze continued to look at the white-haired man. His tongue violently licked his lips, revealing a bloodthirsty manner. I never thought that your cultivation would have already reached late returnance. I'm at the peak of late returnance. Kid, since you've touched something that doesn't belong to you, I'll make you understand the price of your actions today. The white-haired young man let out a furious snort. His body immediately flashed. In the blink of an eye, he had already arrived in front of Xiao Yan. After which, he began to violently slap Xiao Yan's head. However, it was also at this moment that Leng Bingshuang suddenly moved. She arrived before Xiao Yan and used her full strength to receive the white-haired young man's strike. Boom! However, the huge gap between their cultivations caused Leng Bingshuang's lovely body to be instantly sent flying. At the same time, a mouthful of bright red fresh blood was spat out from her mouth, transforming into a blood fog that scattered onto Xiao Yan's face. The trace of coolness brought an extremely furious emotion to Xiao Yan. He had never thought that he would allow his woman to be bullied in front of him. At this very moment, the action of this white-haired young man had undoubtedly infuriated Xiao Yan in an instant. However, the white-haired young man had no idea that he had infuriated Xiao Yan. After sending Leng Bingshuang flying with a single strike, he directly changed his target and looked at Leng Bingshuang instead. Leng Bingshuang. On the other side, the patriarch and other elders of the Cyan Phoenix clan were enraged when they saw this scene, but they were immediately blocked by the experts brought by Zhang Xian. Humph, bitch. You're actually interested in trash like him. Since you insist on blocking for him, I'll send you on your way first. Then I'll kill that trash and make you two a pair of lovebirds. Arriving in front of Ling Bing Shuang, the white-haired youth scolded with a ferocious expression. Then, he slowly raised his right hand, and with an extremely fast speed, mixed with an extremely tyrannical strength, he ruthlessly hit Ling Bing Shuang's pale face. Boom! However, in the next instant, a hand that was filled with power suddenly grabbed the wrist of the white-haired young man and forcefully stopped his movement. At the same time, a powerful force actually firmly held onto his wrist like a metal clamp, causing him to be unable to move at all. What? You trash, get out of my way. The moment the white-haired young man turned his head, the expression on his face involuntarily became startled when he saw that it was actually Xiao Yan. Soon after, a furious emotion suddenly rose within the white-haired young man's heart. His other hand was suddenly clenched into a fist and violently smashed toward Xiao Yan's lowered head. Once this fist landed on Xiao Yan's head, it was likely that even with the strength of his physical body, he would be unable to endure it. Boom! However, a strange scene appeared once again. The white-haired young man's punch, which contained quite a bit of strength, was once again blocked by Xiao Yan's other hand. Soon after, under the white-haired young man's shocked gaze, Xiao Yan slowly raised his head, revealing a face that was filled with a wild killing intent. After which, one could hear an extremely heavy muffled sound. The white-haired young man's body uncontrollably shot backwards and actually forcefully penetrated through the dome of the guest hall. Chapter 11:16. The sudden turn of events attracted the gazes of everyone in the hall. When they saw the white-haired young man being sent flying by Xiao Yan's attack, everyone on the Zhangshuan side could not help but reveal shocked expressions. Given the white-haired young man's cultivation, they did not dare to believe that Xiao Yan, who was at the advanced origin transformation stage, would be able to force him back. However, when these people's gazes landed on Xiao Yan, they were surprised to discover that Xiao Yan's aura had undergone an extremely great change in the blink of an eye. His original late origin transformation cultivation had actually skyrocketed, reaching mid-returnance and even approaching late returnance. Compared to the white-haired young man, Xiao Yan's current cultivation was no different from his. Is this a secret technique? No, it's not a secret technique. It's a pill. No wonder. No wonder this kid can defeat a returnance expert with his cultivation at the origin transformation realm. So he's using a pill that can temporarily increase his cultivation. Humph, otherwise, it's impossible for him to be the opponent of a returnance expert with his measly strength. How can the difference in cultivation be made up for so easily? However, if we let him continue like this, it's very likely that his cultivation will surpass Feng Xiangyu's. Steward, should we stop this kid? These people were indeed worthy of being members of the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe. With just a glance, they were able to see some clues on Xiao Yan's body. However, while these people were hesitating on whether they should intervene, Feng Xiangyu's body suddenly flashed above the dome that had been penetrated by his body. He arrived in front of Xiao Yan in the blink of an eye. His face was ferocious as his claw violently smashed toward Xiao Yan's head. I was careless and actually forgot about you. Looks like you're even more trash than I imagined. You actually relied on pills to increase your strength. Die. Feng Xiangyu's attack was fierce. His sharp claw was wrapped in Genesis Qi and forcefully tore through space. Wherever it passed, space collapsed as a sharp sonic boom rang out in the hall. In an instant, Feng Xiangyu's curved claw had already approached Xiao Yan's face. It seemed like it would land on Xiao Yan's face in the next moment. However, Xiao Yan did not panic in the face of Feng Xiangyu's attack. He bent down and picked up Ling Bingshuang before Feng Xiangyu could reach him. When he lowered his head and saw the trace of blood at the corner of Leng Bingshuang's mouth, the killing intent in Xiao Yan's eyes became even sharper. "You're courting death." Seeing that Xiao Yan actually dared to ignore his attack, Feng Xiangyu's expression changed. At the same time, he could not help but curse angrily. Since he was young, other than a few people in the clan, no one had dared to treat him with such contempt. Xiao Yan could be said to be the first, but he would definitely be the last. With this thought in mind, Feng Xiangyu's attack became even fiercer. In an instant, Xiao Yan's head was torn to shreds. Feng Xiangyu did not even turn his head to look as his claw swept past. He was confident that Xiao Yan had no chance of survival under his attack. "Humph, you overestimate yourself. You think you can fight me by relying on pills." "Really?" Feng Xiangyu lowered his head and sneered. At the same time, he glanced at his hand that had just grabbed Xiao Yan's head. When he saw that his hand was not stained with the slightest bit of blood, his eyes were slightly startled. Following that, the expression on his face became interesting. There was not the slightest trace of blood in his fair palm, and the attack just now seemed incomparably easy. It was as if Xiao Yan had exploded into nothingness under his claw. However, Feng Xiangyu also knew that even if Xiao Yan had died, it was impossible for there not to be any traces of blood left behind. Xiao Yan turned his head to take a look. Indeed, behind Feng Xiangyu, there was a broken illusionary figure that was quietly dispersing. The thing that he had pierced through was merely the head of this illusionary figure. As for Xiao Yan's actual body, he had already left the spot with Leng Bingshuang when Feng Xiangyu's claw landed. How is this possible? Seeing this scene, Feng Xiangyu was even more shocked. He originally thought that he had killed Xiao Yan, but it was only an afterimage. Shua. Immediately after, Feng Xiangyu quickly felt an aura filled with killing intent. He immediately turned around and saw Xiao Yan, who was at a corner of the hall, gently placing Leng Bingshuang's delicate body on a table and feeding her a pill. Only then did he slowly raise his head. A pair of indifferent pitch-black eyes stared calmly at Feng Xiangyu, as if nothing had happened. However, every time this happened, Xiao Yan would be the most terrifying. Feng Xiangyu's heart involuntarily felt a chill spread when he noticed Xiao Yan's calm, dark black eyes. Although those eyes appeared calm, they contained a kind of annihilation feeling that appeared to be about to swallow everything. The invisible might that it gave others was likely even more dangerous than the ferocious aura that Feng Xiangyu was currently emitting. "Humph," Feng Xiangyu coldly snorted. This time, even with his temperament, he didn't dare to act rashly. He could clearly feel that Xiao Yan's strength was no longer inferior to his own. In fact, it was even faintly showing signs of being superior. Although this strength was only temporary, as long as Xiao Yan possessed it, it meant that Xiao Yan had the strength to fight on par with him. In fact, he might even be able to suppress him. Therefore, even Feng Xiangyu couldn't act rashly before he had a complete chance of winning. Just as the people on Zhang Xian's side were about to intervene, they were stopped by the people led by Murong Xian. Murong Xian knew that his father needed to face Zhang Xian. Therefore, the remaining people could only be left to him to deal with. As for Xiao Yan's side, after seeing Xiao Yan's current condition, Murong Xian was certain that the one called Feng Xiangyu was going to suffer. Since there was no one on either side who could interfere in the battle between the two, Xiao Yan could naturally wholeheartedly deal with the white-haired young man before him. "Hee, I didn't expect a trash from the western region like you to possess a pill that can greatly increase one's cultivation." Feng Xiangyu's face carried ridicule as he stared at Xiao Yan opposite him. His mouth repeatedly sneered. At the same time, his gaze was constantly observing Xiao Yan's expression. If he could affect Xiao Yan's mental state at this moment, it would undoubtedly be a good thing for him. However, Xiao Yan didn't comment on Feng Xiangyu's words. His indifferent gaze swept across the former's body as he sneered. "You keep calling me trash. Since you look down on me so much, aren't you still standing here with me? You." The flesh on Feng Xiangyu's face involuntarily twitched when these words were uttered. He was just about to open his mouth to curse when Xiao Yan on the opposite side let out a cold laugh. Xiao Yan's feet heavily stomped on the ground. A wild and violent force suddenly poured out like a volcano eruption. Xiao Yan's body also disappeared from the original spot in an instant. Soon after, he had already arrived in front of Feng Xiangyu. A fist violently smashed toward Feng Xiangyu's face. Chapter 11:17. Although Feng Xiangyu wanted to take the opportunity to affect Xiao Yan's state of mind, he did not expect that he would be used by the latter. Even if it was only for a moment, with the sky extinction step and the wing elephant art, in addition to the close distance between them, it was enough for him to launch a fierce attack on Feng Xiangyu. All that Xiao Yan needed to do was to cause Feng Xiangyu's state of mind to fluctuate for an instant when he executed this attack. In the end, he succeeded. Xiao Yan's lightning-like speed did not give Feng Xiangyu any opportunity to attack. By the time he lifted his head, a powerful wind pressure had already descended from above his head. His entire body appeared to be pressed under a mountain, making it difficult for him to move. Hence, this punch of Xiao Yan's could be said to have completely smashed into Feng Xiangyu's face without holding back. Bang! As the punch landed, Feng Xiangyu's entire face was distorted in an instant. Fresh blood spurted out from his entire face. His mouth full of teeth were all knocked out by Xiao Yan's punch. The thoughts in his mind also became blank under Xiao Yan's punch. A feeling of dizziness appeared in his mind. His entire body flew backwards uncontrollably, like a broken sack. He heavily smashed onto the stone pillar in the hall, smashing it into pieces. "Bastard, you're courting death." Seeing that Feng Xiangyu was actually sent flying by Xiao Yan's punch without holding back, a few of the experts from the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe could no longer maintain their composure. As they cursed, their figures rushed forward, wanting to take down Xiao Yan. However, the moment these people moved, Murong Hao and a group of elders from the Murong family in front of them immediately stepped forward and stopped these people. At the same time, Xiao Yan did not stop. Before Feng Xiangyu regained his senses, Xiao Yan's figure once again appeared in front of him. He waved his fists and ruthlessly smashed Feng Xiangyu's body in front of the broken stone pillar, one punch after another. In the hall, the sound of the tremors did not stop. Feng Xiangyu's body was buried deep in the ruins of the hall under Xiao Yan's fists. Every time Xiao Yan's fist landed, there would be a dull collision sound. The hall in front of everyone present was also trembling slightly. At this very moment, everyone from the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe had their hearts in their throats. The higher-ups had sent them here to ensure Feng Xiangyu's safety, but now, Feng Xiangyu was being violently attacked by a human right in front of them. They could only watch helplessly. This made them feel extremely helpless. At this very moment, they could only hope that the medicinal effect of the pill in Xiao Yan's body would quickly wear off. Otherwise, if anything happened to Feng Xiangyu, it was likely that everyone present would pay the price with their lives. Bang! 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 Heavy explosions continuously sounded. Every time Xiao Yan's fist landed, it was as if it was smashing into their hearts. At a certain moment, even the calm and unmoving Zhang Xian finally could not maintain the expression on his face. It was indeed a good thing for a person to experience some setbacks. However, he never expected that Feng Xiangyu would not get up after being hit by Xiao Yan's fist. Although Xiao Yan played a part in this, it was mostly due to Feng Xiangyu's own intelligence. Just from this point alone, the human called Xiao Yan had already far surpassed him. Otherwise, the person lying on the ground would not be him, Feng Xiangyu. Quickly after, Zhang Xian's lips and teeth opened slightly. A soundless murmur was quietly sent into Feng Xiangyu's mind, instantly waking up the dizzy Feng Xiangyu from his unconscious state. On the main seat, Murong Sun naturally sensed Zhang Xian's actions. However, he also knew Feng Xiangyu's identity. If something truly happened to Feng Xiangyu here, it would likely bring a true calamity to the current Cyan Phoenix clan. So, before that happened, he absolutely could not allow anything to happen to Feng Xiangyu. As for Xiao Yan's violent beating, he would just treat it as a lesson. If Xiao Yan really wanted to kill Feng Xiangyu, it was not something that could be done with a mere punch. Given Xiao Yan's temperament, even if fury had already filled his heart, he still clearly understood that he absolutely could not bring a calamity to the Murong clan for any unnecessary reason. After roaming the continent for so many years, his temperament and experience were already incomparable to ordinary people. He was very clear on this point. This made Murong Sun feel much more at ease. It was also one of the reasons why Zhang Xian did not stop Xiao Yan when he saw Feng Xiangyu's violent beating. Bang! The instant Feng Xiangyu's consciousness recovered, Xiao Yan's fist was instantly blocked by a single hand. The frantically circulating Genesis Qi in his body immediately turned into a protective barrier, causing his aura to rise madly in an instant. Bastard, give, bang! However, even though Feng Xiangyu had already recovered his strength, Xiao Yan's other fist landed heavily with an even more ferocious momentum before he could finish spitting out the curse in his mouth. It completely smashed Feng Xiangyu's body into the ground. When Xiao Yan stood up with an expressionless face, the entire hall became completely silent. The atmosphere appeared strange and solemn. Everyone's gazes gathered on Xiao Yan's body in unison. Boom! Suddenly, the hall's ground was torn apart by a terrifying force. Rays of golden light shot out from the cracks, and with an earth-shaking cry, an enormous bird abruptly flew out, swallowing Xiao Yan in a single gulp. Then, it completely destroyed the hall's dome and rushed out of the Goshawk Castle. Human! Today, I will completely devour you. As the cry rang out again, Feng Xiangyu, who had reverted to his original form, fiercely bit down, intending to crush Xiao Yan in his mouth. However, reality was not as simple as he had imagined. Clang! Dazzling golden light enveloped Xiao Yan's body as powerful Genesis Qi surged out wave after wave. The effects of the dragon bone pill continued to seep out. Although the power was not enough for Xiao Yan's cultivation to break through the shackles of the Returnance realm, it was enough to make him invincible in the Returnance realm. Coupled with his own battle prowess, Feng Xiangyu was no longer a threat to him. Ignoring Feng Xiangyu's attack, Xiao Yan used all his strength to display the giant elephant skill. An enormous illusory figure stood between the sky and the earth like Mount Tai. Soon after, in front of Feng Xiangyu's enormous beast eyes that were filled with terror, both of Xiao Yan's hands lifted Feng Xiangyu's body from the neck as though he was carrying a dead chicken. Xiao Yan used all his strength to violently smash Feng Xiangyu's body into a huge open ground in the city below. Chapter 11-18. Boom! In Blue Eagle City, Feng Xiangyu, who had transformed into his actual body, was heavily smashed down by Xiao Yan, who had used the giant elephant skill. His enormous body was like a falling star as it heavily smashed into an enormous square in the city below. The frightening impact smashed the entire square into a deep pit in an instant. Feng Xiangyu's enormous body was also buried deep within the enormous pit. No trace of him could be seen. Huff! Xiao Yan exhaled a long breath of turbid air from his mouth as he stood in the sky. His chest rose and fell as he gently clenched his hands. He sensed the surging strength within his body and a surprised expression involuntarily surfaced on his face. This dragon bone pill was indeed worthy of being a Tier 6 medicinal pill. Such a continuous and surging strength was still able to cause his overall condition to be at its peak even at this moment. They were both at the peak of late returnance, but Feng Xiangyu was not Xiao Yan's opponent at all. Logically speaking, a pill was still a pill after all. Whether it was in terms of control or circulation, a huge difference existed between a pill and a pill that relied on external sources of energy. However, even with that being the case, Feng Xiangyu was still not Xiao Yan's opponent. The fact that Xiao Yan could achieve this was proof of Xiao Yan's strength. Just think, if Xiao Yan had relied on his true strength, how could Feng Xiangyu have the chance to fight back? Cough cough cough, at the bottom of the huge pit, the golden light dissipated and Feng Xiangyu returned to his human form. However, he looked like a beggar at this time. His clothes were torn, his hair was disheveled, and his face was dirty. His entire body was twisted and broken. Countless bones in his body were broken, and even his chest was completely caved in. Conspicuous huge fist marks appeared on his body, and blood was already stained all over his body. His distorted face made it impossible to recognize his identity. Feng Xiangyu had really been beaten to the point where even his mother would not be able to recognize him. However, Xiao Yan did not seem to have any intentions of stopping. The giant elephant's skill quietly disappeared, turning into a golden light that filled the sky and disappeared from the world. Following the disappearance of the golden light, Xiao Yan's body also strangely disappeared from the spot. Almost at the same time, the skinny body of Xiao Yan suddenly appeared in front of Feng Xiangyu in the huge pit. At this moment, no one dared to look down on this black-robed, young man, whose body appeared thin and weak. The swollen flesh on Feng Xiangyu's face covered his eyes, preventing him from seeing what was happening. However, he was still a returnance expert after all, so he could still sense the appearance of the person before him. However, he was unable to respond in his current state. He did not have any strength to retaliate in the face of Xiao Yan's storm-like attacks. Even if he managed to struggle for an instant, he would be defeated by a single attack. Only at this moment did he sense just how frightening this black-robed, young man in front of him was. Only then did he clearly recognize his own powerlessness. Yes, whether it was pills or secret techniques, as long as it was a power that could be controlled, it belonged to him and was also a part of his strength. In the past, he had really missed this point. Soon afterwards, Xiao Yan swung his fist again, smashing it viciously at Feng Xiangyu's face. "Human, don't you dare!" It was also in the next moment that a sharp, vicious cry boomed through Blue Eagle City. It was like the cry of an eagle, but also like thunder. The moment this voice was emitted, Xiao Yan's raised fist suddenly paused. His entire body was out of control in an instant. There seemed to be a strength in this world that could not be disobeyed controlling his actions. Even though he had used all his strength, he was still unable to control his body. Bzz. In an instant, Xiao Yan's mind buzzed as shock surged in his heart. He could feel the strength of this person. The power he possessed was likely even greater than that of Zhang Xian. Even the patriarch of the Azure Phoenix clan, Murong Sun, could not compare to him. What terrifying power! On top of the shock in Xiao Yan's heart, a feather drifted down from the sky above his head. An extremely powerful force suddenly descended and pressed down on Xiao Yan's head. "Humph, you dare to touch my clan's guest in my Blue Eagle City? You really don't put my Azure Phoenix clan in your eyes." Just as the pressure was about to land on Xiao Yan's head, an ancient and hoarse voice suddenly rang out from the Goshawk Castle. It echoed in Blue Eagle City like the ringing of a bell. The pressure that was about to land on Xiao Yan's head was also invisibly dispersed. You're going to stand up for this human brat?" A fierce cry was once again transmitted from the sky. Xiao Yan's heart was filled with shock as he lifted his head and looked over. He was surprised to discover that the place where the voice had originated from was one of the 3 enormous birds that were lingering in the sky. "Humph, Blue Eagle City is not a place where you can behave atrociously. If you dare to attack again, bzz." The old voice faintly rang out. Almost at the same time, an invisible energy wave suddenly swept out from the Goshawk Castle. Its target was the 3 giant birds in the sky. The 3 big fellows instantly retreated into the distance as if they had been frightened. Clearly, even they did not dare to easily deal with such an attack. A shocked expression involuntarily surfaced on Xiao Yan's face when he saw the 3 huge birds hurriedly pulling back. To be able to rely on an invisible energy ripple to force back these 3 fellows, just how frightening was the cultivation of this mysterious strong person. It was a long while later before Xiao Yan, who was in the city below, finally turned his head around with some lingering fear. He really did not expect that he would be able to repeatedly meet such frightening experts in this seemingly barren western region. This Yuanwu continent was really a place with hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Even the barren western region of the continent was like this. It was difficult to imagine just what kind of shocking scene there would be in the mysterious middle region. The moment Xiao Yan turned around, he realized that Feng Xiangyu had already disappeared. He focused his gaze and saw that Feng Xiangyu was currently sitting cross-legged on a street in the distance. A surging energy was swiftly dispersing within his body. In the blink of an eye, most of the injuries on his body had already recovered. Surging medicinal strength continued to surge out of his body, healing the injuries on his body at a speed visible to the naked eye. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yan could not help but raise his eyebrows. He did not expect Feng Xiangyu to calm down so quickly. Feng Xiangyu did not take advantage of Xiao Yan's absent-mindedness to madly retaliate. Instead, Feng Xiangyu tactfully retreated a distance and used this short period of time to heal his injuries. It seemed that Feng Xiangyu was not an idiot. He had actually comprehended something during the battle. Sensing Xiao Yan's gaze, Feng Xiangyu, whose face was still a little distorted, finally opened his pair of icy cold eyes. An extremely cold glint flashed deep within his eyes. Soon after, a dazzling golden light that was like the sun shot out from his eyes. Xiao Yan, use all your strength and fight me head-on. As soon as he finished speaking, waves of powerful bloodline pressure spread out from his body, transforming into a seemingly material aura that enveloped Feng Xiangyu's body. Chapter 11-19. Xiao Yan's heart skipped a beat when he felt the bloodline aura that was bursting out from Feng Xiangyu's body. At the same time, he could not help but look elsewhere. After confirming that there was nothing out of the ordinary, he turned his gaze back to Feng Xiangyu. Bloodline power, Xiao Yan was naturally very clear about this special demonic beast bloodline. It was similar to the bloodline power of the Xiao clan. Once it was used, it could also bring about a great increase in one's strength in a short period of time. In a battle of this level, once the bloodline power was activated, the battle would undoubtedly be raised to another level. However, this was where the problem lay. In order to not be discovered by the other members of the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe, Xiao Yan had thought of all ways to hide the Dragon Phoenix bloodline in his body before he came here. This was because once the bloodline power of the Dragon Phoenix bloodline was discovered by them, it would definitely bring about a devastating disaster to Xiao Yan. Therefore, throughout the battle, regardless of whether it was Xiao Yan or Feng Xiangyu, if either of them activated the bloodline power, it could possibly expose the fact that Xiao Yan had the Dragon Phoenix bloodline in his body. However, at this moment, Feng Xiangyu had already activated the bloodline power in his body. Xiao Yan could only hope that this guy would not discover anything. Phew, Feng Xiangyu exhaled faintly and slowly stood up from the ground. Waves of icy aura were released from his body and froze the ground around him. Great Way of Ice, Ice Domain, activate. As Feng Xiangyu uttered the last word, the tip of his foot tapped lightly on the ground that was covered in ice. At the same time, his body flew forward. At the same time, a layer of cold ice spread rapidly above the huge pit. In the blink of an eye, it had already covered Xiao Yan's feet. At the same time, the temperature between heaven and earth dropped abruptly. Snowflakes of ice crystals floated in the sky. The originally gentle breeze was now like an invisible sharp blade that scraped against one's skin painfully. Immediately after, Feng Xiangyu, who was flying forward, clenched his fist tightly. The great way of ice immediately condensed and turned into an ice halberd in his hand. His body circled in mid-air, and the halberd immediately spun crazily and stabbed towards Xiao Yan. Mammoth Art, activate. Xiao Yan frowned slightly in response to Feng Xiangyu's powerful attack. He then abruptly clenched his fists, and the Genesis Qi and power in his body began to circulate at the same time. In the blink of an eye, a giant metal giant once again stood tall in the area. Clang! Sparks burst forth as the halberd ruthlessly pierced into the Vajra giant that was completely condensed from the virtual image. However, it was as if it had really collided with an iron wall. Dazzling sparks continuously burst forth as the powerful force finally pushed Xiao Yan back a little. However, that was all. During this entire process, Xiao Yan did not take the initiative to launch an attack. He completely relied on the strength of the mammoth tactic to directly resist Feng Xiangyu's attacks. What? Feng Xiangyu had clearly activated the power of his bloodline. However, he discovered that he was still unable to defeat Xiao Yan. He was even unable to break through the latter's defense. Such a strange scene caused Feng Xiangyu to be extremely shocked. Damn it! Ice-breaking kill. Seeing that his attack had failed, Feng Xiangyu could only look for another method. The halberd violently jerked, once again pushing Xiao Yan back. He then immediately stabbed the tip of the halberd into the ice in front of him and fiercely twisted. A clear sound of breaking ice was heard as sharp icicles filled with Genesis Chi slowly floated up, hovering around Feng Xiangyu. With a furious roar from Feng Xiangyu, countless icicles viciously pierced towards Xiao Yan with the power to break bamboo. Ding 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 ding, countless crisp sounds of collisions rang out. After those icicles touched the giant elephant art, other than leaving a shallow white mark on its surface, they immediately shattered into pieces of ice shards and fell to the ground. However, these ice shards strangely landed on the surface of the body formed by the giant elephant art. In the end, countless pieces of ice finally sealed Xiao Yan's entire body. A thick layer of ice completely sealed the mammoth tactic and Xiao Yan within, making it impossible for him to move, let alone break free. My ice-breaking kill doesn't rely on the power of these ice shards. Instead, it uses these shards of ice to freeze the opponent. Then, I will break the ice from the outside. If the ice is broken, your golden body will be broken as well. As these words left his mouth, Feng Xiangyu's body had already arrived in front of Bing Feng's mammoth tactic. The tip of the halberd touched the ice, and with a little force, the entire layer of ice completely shattered. At the same time, Xiao Yan's mammoth tactic was also broken. Kill. With the mammoth tactic broken, the power contained in the ice halberd was unreservedly thrust forward. In a flash, it had already arrived in front of Xiao Yan and was about to pierce his chest. At that time, even if Xiao Yan did not die, his body would be seriously injured in an instant. Bang! However, in the next moment, when the halberd was only a few inches away from Xiao Yan's chest, Xiao Yan clasped his hands together and a powerful force firmly controlled the tip of the halberd between his two hands, causing it to be unable to advance any further. At the same time, ferocious flames abruptly ignited on Xiao Yan's body. The two hands that grabbed the halberd fiercely squeezed. In addition to the raging flames of the heavenly flame, even if it was formed by the power of the great Tao, it was still ruthlessly broken by Xiao Yan. Soon after, Xiao Yan finally raised his head. He stared at Feng Xiangyu's dull face in front of him and smiled coldly. His body suddenly leaned forward. Soon after, his hand, which was covered by the heavenly flame, gently pressed against Feng Xiangyu's chest. Bang! A powerful force pierced through Feng Xiangyu's chest and back in an instant, causing blood to spurt out like a fountain. Feng Xiangyu's complexion, which had just taken a turn for the better, once again turned deathly white. The little bit of confidence and courage he had gathered in his patience had also been destroyed by Xiao Yan in the most merciless manner possible. Feng Xiangyu's body was sent flying uncontrollably as the Genesis Chi he had painstakingly gathered in his body instantly dissipated. Feng Xiangyu's mind was completely blank as despair filled his heart. He did not dare to imagine that his all-out attack was actually no match for Xiao Yan's palm. Just why was this? Xiao Yan did not follow up with another attack after sending Feng Xiangyu flying with his palm. This was because he had already clearly sensed three ferocious gazes that wanted to devour him. If he were to continue, it was likely that the three fellows in the sky would not be able to endure any longer before Feng Xiangyu breathed his last. Feng Xiangyu was naturally not a problem for him. In today's battle, Xiao Yan had repeatedly destroyed Feng Xiangyu's confidence, which would likely affect his future cultivation. A mere origin transformation expert from the western regions would likely become a demon in Feng Xiangyu's heart in the future, making it difficult for Feng Xiangyu to make any further progress. As such, not only had Xiao Yan not killed Feng Xiangyu, he had also eliminated an enemy that could potentially become a problem in the future. Was this not a good idea? After which, Xiao Yan no longer bothered about Feng Xiangyu. Instead, his body flashed and returned to the goshawk castle. It was only at this moment that the enormous strength within Xiao Yan's body began to swiftly disappear. Finally, when Xiao Yan supported his body and arrived in front of the still unconscious Leng Bingshuang, the sight in front of him suddenly turned black. His entire body immediately fell uncontrollably onto Leng Bingshuang's body. Chapter 11:20. By the time Xiao Yan woke up from his unconscious state, Feng Xiangyu's group had already left. With Murong Sun and that mysterious expert blocking them, they could only leave angrily regardless of how furious they were in their hearts. Only a messy Blue Eagle city was left behind. Of course, the members of the Murong clan were unconcerned about this. What they were concerned about was the matter that had happened to Leng Bingshuang. When they saw Xiao Yan angrily attack Feng Xiangyu because of Leng Bingshuang, the upper echelons of the Murong family had already begun to suspect the relationship between the two of them. Only when Zhang Xian and the others left and they saw Leng Bingshuang's worried expression after she woke up did they become even more certain of their relationship. The overflowing feelings that surpassed the boundaries of friendship made them immediately understand the importance of Xiao Yan in Leng Bingshuang's heart. Of course, Xiao Yan's actions earlier had already proven this woman's identity to them. Such a domineering and irrefutable attitude was rarely seen in the world. Which origin transformation expert would be like Xiao Yan, able to utter such retorting words in the face of Zhang Xian, whose strength far surpassed his own, like that of Xiao Yan? Most of the time, a person's seemingly foolish action could actually reflect his bravery and worth. If Xiao Yan was embarrassed to speak today because of the difference in strength between him and his opponent, then it was likely that both the Murong clan and Leng Bingshuang would be disappointed in him, especially Leng Bingshuang. However, Xiao Yan had used his actions to break something that most people would not do. Not lowering his head to the strong, not giving up due to fear. After the effects of the dragon bone pill wore off, Xiao Yan still fell before Leng Bingshuang in the end. His slightly skinny body fell onto Leng Bingshuang's body. In the final moment before Xiao Yan completely lost consciousness, he could only smell a faint fragrance. He clearly remembered that it was the unique scent of Leng Bingshuang. In a beautiful boudoir within the goshawk castle, Xiao Yan's breathing was calm as he lay on the bed in a deep sleep. Beside him, Leng Bingshuang's soft, boneless lovely body was lying on the side of the bed. She frowned slightly as her pretty eyes stared at the side of Xiao Yan's face. She was completely entranced and no one knew what she was thinking in her mind. After Murong Sun's personal investigation, he confirmed that Xiao Yan was fine. He had only fainted because the energy in his body had been exhausted. Even so, Leng Bingshuang couldn't help but worry. 2 hours had already passed, yet Xiao Yan still hadn't woken up. Leng Bingshuang stared at Xiao Yan's face in a daze. At a certain moment, Leng Bingshuang, who was absent-minded, suddenly felt an abnormal gaze on her. She immediately came back to her senses, and as she focused her gaze, she saw Xiao Yan staring at her with a smile. His face was filled with an intoxicated expression. Instantly, a crimson color surged onto her cheeks. Leng Bingshuang couldn't help but avoid Xiao Yan's gaze. She lowered her head slightly, and just as she was about to stand up and leave, Xiao Yan suddenly wrapped his arm around her slender waist. Then, he lightly lifted, and amidst a surprised cry, Leng Bingshuang's light body was carried onto the bed by Xiao Yan. At the same time, Xiao Yan abruptly flipped over, and put the beauty on top of him onto the bed. Then, he pressed her under him. The two of them faced each other. One was like an enraged wild beast, while the other was like a frightened deer that was curled up together. She didn't know what to do. Her beautiful eyes kept on flickering as she looked at the man in front of her. She could clearly feel the uncontrollable raging flames in the man's body. It was as if they were going to devour her alive. It made her both shocked and terrified. "What are you doing?" Leng Bingshuang's heart rapidly jumped as she cried out. At the same time, her body kept on twisting, wanting to escape from Xiao Yan's imprisonment. However, the woman's actions instead caused the man's emotions to rise. He grinned, and said with a loud laugh, "What are you doing? What do you think I'm doing? At a time like this, of course I have to do what a man should do." After speaking, Xiao Yan abruptly lowered his head, like a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey. He didn't allow Leng Bingshuang to say anything else as he lowered his head and pressed her down. Immediately after, in the boudoir, there was boundless spring. After a long time, outside the door, Murong Xian slowly walked in from the end of the corridor. A relaxed smile hung on the corner of his mouth. Just as he arrived in front of Leng Bingshuang's door and was about to raise his hand to knock on the door, a faint moving sound came from the boudoir, causing Murong Xian's movements to suddenly stop. His old face couldn't help but flush. It was also at this moment that a few maids from the family walked in. When they saw Murong Xian, they immediately opened their mouths to greet him. However, they were immediately stopped by Murong Xian with a wave of his hand. His body blocked the door, as if he wanted to cover up the movements in the room. At the same time, he sent the maids away with a smile on his face. Seeing the graceful backs of the several people leaving, Murong Xian shook his head with a strange expression. After attentively listening for a while, his face reddened as he hurriedly left. Only after the sky darkened did a maid come and respectfully invite the two of them. Only then did Xiao Yan hold Leng Bingshuang's hand and walk out of the room. When the two of them saw Murong Sun and the other people from the clan again, they discovered that everyone's gazes involuntarily looked at Leng Bingshuang. Then, their gazes returned to Xiao Yan. Within their gazes, there was a hint of faintly discernible teasing. Xiao Yan was a guest, while Leng Bingshuang had returned to her hometown. Because of that, Murong Xian specially prepared a banquet to welcome the two of them. However, after the two of them sat down, for some unknown reason, as they chatted and laughed, their words were all focused on Xiao Yan. On the other hand, Leng Bingshuang, a person who was originally of great importance to the Azure Phoenix clan, was mysteriously ignored. During that entire process, Leng Bingshuang's face reddened. Naturally, she understood some things from the gazes of those people. Other than feeling shame and anger in her heart, she could only vent her anger onto Xiao Yan. Taking advantage of the time when he was happily chatting and drinking with the people at the table, Xiao Yan's thigh had already turned purple. Everyone pretended as if nothing had happened. Even when the banquet was over, there were still happy smiles on their faces. Only Xiao Yan, as he helplessly smiled, he couldn't help hugging his swollen thigh. Right now, even walking had become a problem. In the end, only with Leng Bingshuang's support did Xiao Yan return to the room as if he was drunk. In the next few days, Xiao Yan stayed in Blue Eagle City. Naturally, the Murong family treated him with incomparable warmth. Xiao Yan was naturally very happy. In that period of time, Xiao Yan and Leng Bingshuang had quite a bit of fun as well. Only 4 days later did the two of them receive news from the Shilin region. Within the news, there weren't too many descriptions, only 4 simple words. Luo Jin has arrived. Chapter 11:21. Xiao Yan's heart was immediately filled with joy when he received the news that Luo Jin had sent over. Back then, he had not met Luo Jin since the Tianju ancient tomb. He did not know just what kind of cultivation that fellow had become after these years. If they were to meet this time around, he would definitely have a good drink with Luo Jin. Carrying the surprise in his heart, Xiao Yan led Leng Bingshuang to bid farewell to the Mu Rong clan and hurried towards the Shilin region. 3 days later, the two of them returned to the Shilin mountain range. Luo Jin was waiting for Xiao Yan's return. Obviously, there would be a lot of small talk when brothers met. Ha ha ha, brother Luo Jin, I never thought that you would have already reached the peak of late origin transformation after a few years. You're probably only a step away from returnance. As they approached, the two men gave each other a big hug. Both of their faces revealed heroic smiles. After not seeing each other for several years, not only did their relationship not fade, it had instead deepened with the passage of time. The relationship between men was like a jar of aged wine. It did not need any seasoning. Time was the best winemaker. Hee, I can't compare to you. You're basically a monster. I've only just returned to the western region, and I've already heard that you can even kill returnance experts. I really have no idea how you cultivate, Jian Chen laughed. Hearing this, Xiao Yan innocently shrugged his shoulders and did not say anything else. Seeing this, Luo Jin also understood that Xiao Yan had some difficulties in his heart. He laughed out loud and did not say anything more on this issue. Since you've already returned to the western region, I wonder if old man Luo has come as well. Xiao Yan was naturally asking about Luo Ao. Until now, he still remembered the words that Luo Ao had told him back then. If he wanted to completely repair the heavy Xian ruler and the Luo Tian cauldron, he would need some special ingredients. Only Luo Ao was aware of these ingredients. Xiao Yan involuntarily wanted to inquire about them after seeing Luo Jin return this time around. However, to Xiao Yan's disappointment, Luo Ao had already returned to the central region. Now, only Luo Jin remained in the western region. If not for his relationship with Xiao Yan, he would have returned to the central region long ago. After learning that Luo Ao had already returned to the central region, Xiao Yan nodded, but he could not help but feel suspicious. A few months ago, Xing Gan of the Alchemist Alliance had also said that he would be going out on a trip, and the hall master of the Ghost Hall had died at his hands in order to capture him. Now, even Luo Ao, a force from the central region, had returned to the central region. Why was this? Unknowingly, these forces from the central territory had actually retracted their main forces. Could this be a coincidence? However, just as Xiao Yan was harboring suspicions in his heart, Luo Jin, who was originally laughing with him, gradually withdrew the smile on his face. His expression turned serious as he solemnly said, "Xiao Yan, meeting you is only one of my reasons for returning to the western regions this time. The main reason is because of another matter." Hearing this, Xiao Yan immediately raised his eyebrows. A bad premonition quietly rose in his heart. On my way back, I heard that the Sea Cloud Palace, one of the major factions in the southern region, is preparing to annex some of the factions in the southwest border. This includes a city, the Qingyang city. However, according to what I know, the Lu clan in the Qingyang city insists on not submitting to the Sea Cloud Palace. Therefore, the Sea Cloud Palace seems to be planning to act against them. I know that the Lu clan has quite a deep relationship with you, so I hurriedly came to find you. Swoosh. Xiao Yan's expression immediately darkened when Luo Jin said this. Qingyang city. Wasn't that the Lu clan's territory? Other than him, Bai Hua was also there. Moreover, there was also that little girl called Lian Er. She was another one with the woeful poison body. He had originally planned to find her as a disciple for the fairy doctor. Moreover, he had promised Lu Feng that he would help him protect the Lu clan. Now that they were about to be annihilated, how could he sit by and do nothing? Thank you. This information is extremely important to me. If you hadn't told me today, I'm afraid that I would have to bear this regret for the rest of my life. Xiao Yan clasped his hands towards Luo Jin with a solemn expression. Seeing this, Luo Jin didn't have any intention to stop him. He could understand the meaning behind Xiao Yan's expression. If it wasn't something extremely important, it was impossible for him to completely express the emotions in his heart on his face. That sea cloud palace had really angered Xiao Yan this time. What should we do now? Seeing the expression on Xiao Yan's face, Leng Bingshuang, who was following by the side, also asked with a worried expression. It was only at this moment that Luo Jin noticed the beautiful woman beside Xiao Yan. Feeling the powerful aura within the latter's body that was not inferior to his own, Luo Jin's heart couldn't help but tremble slightly. He didn't expect that in just a few years, not only had Xiao Yan become so tyrannical, even the cultivation of the people around him had also reached such a powerful level. Moreover, looking at the way Leng Bingshuang was holding on to Xiao Yan's arm, as long as anyone saw it, they would be able to immediately recognize the relationship between the two. This guy is really, sensing this, even with Luo Jin's mental state, he couldn't help but feel a trace of envy rise in his heart. Let's go. Let's go to the southern region. Without any hesitation, Xiao Yan straightforwardly spat out these words without even thinking. With one hand holding onto Leng Bingshuang, he turned around and brought Leng Bingshuang towards Lengchui city. The latter obediently followed beside Xiao Yan, allowing him to hold onto her jade-like hand. The two of them swiftly flew out of the Shilin mountain range. Behind them, Luo Jin hesitated for a moment before hurriedly following. On a mountain peak in the distance, the little fairy doctor, who was wearing a long white dress, gazed at the back of the person who had bitterly waited for his return, only to leave in the blink of an eye. The depths of her beautiful eyes were filled with desolation. It seemed like he no longer needed her by his side. An hour later, Xiao Yan's group swiftly arrived at Lengchui city. This place was where the formation that connected the western region and the southern region was located. In the entire western region, only through this place could they enter the southern region. However, when the three of them arrived at this place, the scene in front of them instantly caused their faces to become dull. The originally prosperous Lengchui city was actually a mess at this very moment. The entire city was strangely deathly silent, as if it had just experienced a huge battle. Other than corpses and broken walls that littered the ground, there was nothing left in the entire city. The once prosperous Lengchui city had now become a dead city. Moreover, what shocked Xiao Yan's group the most was that the transportation formation at the center of the city had actually been forcefully destroyed by some unknown force. In other words, the current them had no way of entering the western region.